Okay, mic should be on now. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me do volume check. Volume check is good. All right, just got off of work. I'm gonna push some red maps. I'm pretty tired, so probably gonna be 2-hour stream or until I get too tired. Instead of playing music, I think we're gonna listen to the Zizarin chat that he had with GGG because I did not get a chance to listen to that yet because I was working. So I'm gonna play that and listen to that and comment on it and pause it while I'm playing the game. That is the plan.
You will have more reviews when it launches and you started running ads before people join? Yeah. Did I just get 100 gifted? Anonymous. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright, there we go.
Audio test. I'm gonna turn you up to 120. Let's test again.
Okay. Does it sound good?
Hello, hello. This is Mark.
Why are they so quiet? Hope he fixes
Let's
this.
see. Still louder. Okay, I'll turn you up to 160.
Okay.
Try talking.
Can you? How does it sound now? Does that sound alright?
And how does this sound? This is Mark again.
Mm-hmm.
Turn.
We might be able to get it turned up on our end.
Well, I think now is good.
Sound,
I'm gonna try to get a.
Okay.
Ooh, but I have echo when I speak. I think. Yeah, I can hear myself.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll just get our audio guy to.
They got technical difficulties over there.
Yeah.
We're off to a good start this interview.
Can you?
Oh
try again now?
jeez.
All right. Hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I don't think I have echo anymore. How?
Great.
What's? How? I'm still louder than them. Yeah. Maybe turn yourselves up a little bit.
Okay. Hey, Jen, are you able to get the? Sweet. All right. Apparently, it's cranked up a bit now. Is that better?
How's that chat?
Is that okay?
Test, test. How is this chat?
How long does
How
this
is
go on
this?
for? What the heck? Got stuff to do.
A bit more. I mean, I can turn them up a little bit more. I can put them up to 170.
6. Yeah, I gotta do this on
Alright.
level 7.
Try now.
All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that okay? Hopefully that's all right.
Oh, this is gonna
Okay,
be
everybody's saying
brutal.
good. And my comparative audio to them is
Alright.
good?
All right.
Okay, cool. Everyone's saying good. I just hope my OBS doesn't crash during this. Like, I've had some, like, OBS issues lately.
Okay.
So, hopefully not. But yeah.
Okay,
I'm ready to
Zizarin,
start.
go
Just,
in.
like,
Go
a
get
quick
'em.
intro, and then we go. But, yeah. Thank you so much for joining me here for a podcast after the launch of POE2. This is Jonathan and Neon, for those that don't know, directors of GGG, and yeah, we're here to talk about the launch.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's always good to have a chat. Obviously it's a bit of a contentious launch in some ways this time, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about that. But it's always good to have a chat.
Yeah. No, I do have a lot of questions, so I think we'll just get right into it.
Sure.
A lot of people are pretty unhappy with the current state of the game, especially like our relative power to the monsters earlier on. And obviously we are finding some builds that are feeling okay and that are stronger, but I'm asking, are the slower and more challenging builds the intended pace of the game?
Well, I don't know that. Once again, I mean, we get this question a lot, right? Of just the what is the pace of the game supposed to be? And I honestly find it hard to answer that because of the way that there isn't really an obvious way to even quantify that, given that players have so many different abilities. What I will make all I can say is that if people are unhappy, then we will keep on improving things until they're not unhappy anymore. Because ultimately we want to get the smooth progression where, you start the game, you feel weak, you get stronger, you get stronger, you get stronger, you keep on feeling stronger and stronger. And you have to have that progression where you're feeling more and more powerful as you're going through. So if you're not feeling that, then that means there's something that we have to improve and get better. So it really comes down to okay, if you're talking about a weaker build, well, what build is it? And Dean will be looking into that and seeing what we can do to improve it. We just have to go through these things one at a time.
So I think right now the problem is that it's almost every build this week for a lot of archetypes, and that it's more like it's definitely in the minority that people are like, oh, I found something that works. So it's like almost like the reverse there. And I guess I'm curious, like what amount of time are you expecting people to take going through the entire campaign, or on your own test run, or like when you're doing test runs, how long do you take on a first campaign run?
You know, I actually haven't measured that on the current like version, and it doesn't necessarily always work that way. Like the number of times I play through the full, and when I say campaign here, I'm talking about 6 acts, not just 3.
Yeah.
Like if you're talking about the amount of time, like doing that, like I might only do that like that full run like 2 or 3 times in total as we're developing a class.
Yeah.
Like much more often, I'm like either testing this part or I'm testing that part or whatever. And I honestly am not sure exactly what amount of time that's taking. But like as I said, I don't know that like the time. Like the thing is, the presupposition with this question is that like, you know, that we have a goal in mind for the amount of time for the campaign. And the implication of that is that the campaign itself is not fun. But it's like, if that's the implication, then we just want to make that fun, right? You know, it's like the campaign should be fun to play. The amount of time it takes, to me, is not nearly as relevant as just make it fun, right? If you aren't having fun, we want to make sure that it is. So like, that's why, you know, when we're like, okay, people are saying like, we don't like the Act 3 areas, make those shorter. It's like, well, what amount of, like, I don't think that quantifying that in an amount of time is the right way to look at it. It's like, here are some areas that are unfun. I'll make those areas fun, and then whatever the duration of time that takes will not be bothering you. And that may result in the areas becoming shorter, but making it shorter is not like, it isn't a time metric that we are looking at to determine whether or not the game is good. It's, is the game good fun to play? So like that I guess is kind of the way that I would look at things. And that's, I think, what puts us a little bit, like when it comes to communication with the community, like, people will have their opinion about what they think is the reason that the game isn't fun, and they might be right or they might not be right or whatever, but at the end of the day what we're looking at is just like, okay, you're obviously having a bad time, we want to fix that. So we're going to look at like, here, like, so what we'll do is we'll be like, okay, so you're saying Act 3 isn't good, we'll look at Act 3, we'll look at the reasons why it might be bad.
It's so weird because I thought last time when I leveled,
or in this case it definitely will, like it's short.
I thought the campaign was the most fun part of the game in the first initial patch. I actually leveled 3 characters in it. I didn't think it was that bad. Why did they mess it up?
Shortened it by a lot. The, you know, and then, but to me, it's like, the frustrating thing is when you go down a dead end and you're like, okay, you know, like this is, you know, this is bad, or, and then like you have to respawn, or in the area doesn't, you know, like the area despawns and you're like, you have to do things again, that kind of stuff, right? That's the stuff that people don't like to do. And so that's where we sort of look at. And so then when it coming back to builds again, once again, it's like, okay, if you're not having fun with your build, then that is a problem. We'll fix that. But it's not like there's a correct pace for the game to be played at as such. We just need to make sure that you're enjoying yourself. Well,
I guess a follow-up to that was, I, along with many others, were not expecting a nerf to just how the campaign felt in general, right? In the last interview I heard, it really sounded like the intention was to target things at the top end. But there were so many things that nerfed us during the campaign here. And well, the thing I would say about that,
I
would like to finish.
Sure. Okay.
A lot of people are really wondering about the long-term.
Don't let them interrupt you, Ziz. Get in there.
In mind, because they were also not expecting that. So a lot of people are wondering if
campaign, to be clear,
that was going to be my question.
That was not our intention.
So
yeah,
we should be more powerful than we currently are during the campaign then.
Well, that one I will have to look at specific cases, right? Because like that comes down to like okay, so like we already did something about that, right? Where we like nerfed Monster Life, and it's possible that we'd have to nerf Monster Life again if that's still a problem. Like that's the kind of thing that we can do. But the thing is that like as I said, like the first thing we heard when everyone was saying this, the first thing we thought was like, what the hell? We didn't even nerf the campaign. Like literally, that's what all developers were saying. We didn't nerf this. Why is everyone saying we nerfed it? And so like then it's like, well, we found a few things, but like we're still looking for what those things are. Like it's not always necessarily obvious with all the changes that you make and things, because like,
are you fucking serious? Are you really? They don't know. They don't know what it is? Yeah, are you serious right now? The ailment changes. If you don't invest in it, you can't freeze anything. You can't stun anything. You have entire classes who need that. Also, you removed our ailments, so we're stunned easier and stuff. Really? And then you buff the monster HP on the minions and stuff. How do you not know? Are you serious?
I can absolutely tell you that our goal here was nerf the end game, right? Like nerf the, like, well, no, it wasn't even nerf the end game. What it was nerf the things that were trivializing the end game before you've even managed to get the, you know, like your items and stuff like that. Like just the really trivial, easy shit. Like that was our intention.
I mean, there were some blatant fuck ups.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
so
speaking bluntly.
There you go.
Like, I mean, the minion change was just bad.
And when you say the minion change, are you referring to the rare minions or referring to the player minions? Because those are both.
Well,
both of those were incredibly terrible.
just fuck up.
Yes, those were just fuck ups. And the thing is, it's so easy for shit for like that to slip through.
Well, we have a bit of a, and look, a lot of it is just because there's a little bit of like, it's early access, so we're allowed. But we like are firing from the hip a lot here. And the stuff like that, like let's get it in there, let's try it out, see how people think, and if it's bad, we just undo it, right? Like we do regress on a decent number of things in the first few days of a release, and so yeah, there are some pretty blatant fuck ups. So yeah, that's exactly what happened with the rare minion life. It was like, what the, why are now, I don't know why it felt this way, but 100% it was the case that the minions was, for some reasons, the rare minions were surviving longer than the rare often, and it's like, well, it doesn't have, they don't have anywhere near as much life as the rare, and then again, once people got enough AoE and all of that, it solved it, but it was just a bad experience. There was just nothing good about that.
Right. I think there was definitely a compounding of a few factors that were like on their own relatively small. But the thing is that if, and this is the question that I have is that like if people are still having a bad time during the campaign, if they're starting fresh now, because bear in mind as well that people will have an experience and then we'll change the balance behind them and then they still remember that the experience was bad and they're not playing it again to know that it got better. So the thing is, if you're playing it again and still having a bad experience,
sorry bro, it was a bad experience. I ain't playing that again. I ain't doing it.
Where are the campaign nerfs actually? Like we have to find where they are because I don't. Like,
it's on the ailments.
I don't know that there's anything intentionally done there that we're sort of aware of left. And I think like that one just means that
I can give examples.
There might still be issues.
Yeah,
sure.
Give examples,
so the number one, especially to me, most oppressive thing is the relative speed of monsters compared to our abilities to set things up. Like whenever you're talking,
hang on, but that's not a thing that changed though.
No, but that's been continuously bad. It doesn't matter if it's changed or not.
Okay, sure. But what I'm saying is that, but this is an example.
I think that has changed.
But that's just an example of something that's bad. So what I'm saying is that's not a thing that changed. So like, if you're talking about like, is it your intention to nerf the campaign?
But we are weaker now, right? A lot of skills.
But if you're saying that's bad, I mean that's a different question, right?
A lot of skills are weaker now, right? They were tuned down on a lot of things, and things that people are starting with.
And the support
strong, so that relative speed of the monsters feels extra bad. Like you want us to set up these combos and stuff, right? Where we're throwing down like the cyclone and trying to do like a combo move, but the monsters are way too fast. They're rushing us. It's not even like the bosses are the main problem, right? Like if you're seeing like clips.
Yeah, so let's talk about the monster speed thing. So one of the issues that we have is that if monsters are slower than the player, then combat is optional. Like it's just 100% the case. Like you cannot, if the monsters are slow, like anytime the monsters are slower than the player, then you can just
combat should be optional to a certain extent. If you can't do it, you should be able to run away.
Engage or not. And like I don't think that kind of gameplay is good. Now there will probably be some areas like, and the thing is, a lot of the time when people talk about stuff like this, it's like there'll be a few areas that are bad.
I'd
like,
hard disagree.
I know there are definitely a few areas where like too many of the monsters are fast. So the Faradin are a good example of that. Where like, when you go to the last areas of Act 2, like the Faradin are just really, really fast, and there's kind of nothing slow in the area, and so that's an example where like we probably want to make some tuning.
I mean,
there.
to get more specific, like I'm actually, I have someone right now, literally going through the areas. All areas in the campaign and listing all the areas that have a disproportionately high number of monsters that are too swarmy or too fast. Right. They're doing it literally as we speak up, and my intention after this is to go through. And so like, I mean, a good example is like the canopy, right? Yeah, the canopy. Sure. The monsters are real fast, and then not only that, you're in a ritual with them in a tight confined space, and it just, you end up in this kind of moving around with packs. So if you're not fast enough to kill everything, you just get absolutely swarmed. So, and
I guess I'm a little.
But just to continue with that though. I just want to mention that like one of the issues we run into is like people will say, oh, you know, like things should never be faster than the player and that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, if we did that, then the game would feel pretty lame. So it really is a question of like targeted changes, like finding where the worst things are and then solving that issue.
I really disagree with that. So you were saying like if the monsters are slower than the player, then combat is optional, but like it's an ARPG. We want to kill the monsters. That's where all the loot is. That's where our XP is. Like, sure, you'll have some speedrun scenarios where people are running past them, but usually what ends up happening is that we're running past them, bunching them up in a large bunch and killing a bunch of them, and that just feels really good. That's a core part of ARPGs for a lot of people. So I don't think that being faster than the monster is as bad as you think it is. Like, we actively want to kill monsters. That is the entire premise.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you that gathering killing is fun, right? And you should still be able to do that. But I would, as I said, I don't think anything about the fact that some monsters are faster than the player prevents that. I don't think you can have areas where everything is slower than the player. Like, it really isn't that great.
Oh man, dude.
In POE1, in the distant past,
I don't agree with him
we had
at
that
all
problem,
on
and it
this
just
stuff,
meant that
dude.
running
This
past monsters
scares
was
me.
needed all the time. And then there were some changes, like, I don't know how many years ago it was, like...
He's gonna say the Roas, and it was really good.
One, like, thing.
Oh,
Like, we made
please
changes
don't.
where we made a lot of monsters faster than the player, and at the time, and that wasn't negatively perceived at the time, it just made...
It was awful, I still
better.
hate it. Is he serious?
So, like, you absolutely can have monsters faster than the player, and I do think it's important to have those kind of...
The Roa change.
like...
And those
it's just about
changes
me
to
that it's
Act
prevent-
1,
like,
2,
it's
whatever,
just that, like, you need
is
to make
one
sure
of the
you're getting
worst
balance
changes
right.
they've ever
And I
made,
think that that's
and
like a
they
running theme
left
with
them in the
POE2
game.
in general, is that the target to hit is smaller.
The Roas
Like,
is
because if we want
stupid.
the combat to be more engaging,
gosh,
then that
dude.
means there's a smaller target that, like it puts more pressure on the balance to be right. And so I think that's the main issue that we're running into, is just that it's okay if everything okay, so this is sort of a larger topic, right? But effectively, it's like in POE1 there are so many tools that the knowledge ceiling is absolutely astronomical, and so you have a situation where a good player can completely dominate everything to like the absolute nth degree, right? Now, what that means is that you've got a scenario where the game seems like an impenetrable mountain to a new player, because like if you don't know what you're doing, the game is just like impossible to understand. And it's like there's all these tools that you can use to improve yourself, but the existence of everything like that and like having such a huge skill ceiling means that you can just trivialize the game right at the start. And so like
that's how it should be. You should be rewarded for time investment and knowledge in the game.
Wrong, like if a monster has like double life by accident in POE1, it like doesn't even really matter. Whereas if a monster has double life in POE2, it matters a lot. And so what I'm saying is that the threshold for what is right is like way tighter in POE2, and so that means it will just take longer to balance and get it all correct. But it really is the case, I think, that that it's getting all those numbers right that kind of makes it like that will make the combat ultimately fun at the end of the day. And like if we're doing our job correctly, then we'll still have this situation where a good player feels like they dominate and a bad player feels that they have a good time. But we won't have a situation where if you're a good player, the combat is so trivialized that you literally never have a moment where you're in any danger or have any kind of like level of like sort of interest going on. And I think that's
I don't
the worry
think
that we have
POE1's
when we're
like
looking
that,
at things.
at
It's
least
like,
for me.
if we get to the
playing
point
it for so many
where
hours.
like a good player never has to face a single challenge ever, then I don't think that that's going to be a game that will ultimately be fun in the long term. And so that's kind of like that, so that is to me the reason. Like
you
what I
don't
fear
understand
happening if we
the
just,
ceiling
like,
of
say,
how
okay,
good
we're just
people
gonna,
are
like,
at
lower
video
everything and make it
games.
easy. And that
You're
once again, that
making
isn't to say
games
that
for
we
people you shouldn't
like,
be
maybe
making
monster life
games
does
for
have to come
at
down.
this
Like if we're in the wrong band, we just need to lower it, and that's fine. Like we will get to the point where that is fun. But
Man,
we'll
I
do
really
that
disagree with
by
them on
making,
these things.
while still making sure that we have a good experience for.
This is making a whole
you know,
lot
like,
more
for-
sense.
ideally for everyone.
Because
right?
I
Like, it
just
should be the case
fundamentally
that is
disagree with
balanceable that
them
way.
on
It's
these
just a lot harder
decisions,
in POE2
just
content.
straight up.
Well, I think a large portion
And
what,
if
like,
they don't
bosses
change
to
their
be what is the
minds,
challenging content, whereas
I'm
right
not
now
sure
it's
I'm
almost the
ever gonna
reverse, where
like
there's so many
enjoy this
clips of, like,
game
people like
after
don't
they kill
rolling
this
away from like
build.
packs, right, and they're getting chased down, maybe not having a counterplay, and they're like, oh my god, I'm just being chased down. So and also I sort of disagree on the Act 1 changes in POE1 not being negatively received. I do remember there was quite a lot of people that really didn't like that. Because of what you mentioned with like the faster monsters is generally a bad thing. So I definitely do disagree with that.
Just because I'm like to have things to actually go and start to address. Like, can I get a gauge on what you think is like where in the game it starts to become a problem, or do you think it's like just straight out of the gate?
Straight
Just
out of the
again,
gate. Like the even the second zone, like the first zone might be okay, but the second zone with the wolves, it's like pretty like instant where I don't feel like I'm getting that like ARPG playstyle.
But won't we be hurting more players than we're helping with that?
By making
Like, won't
monsters
that
slower?
immediately make it? Yeah, won't we that immediately mean that like a ton of players who actually enjoy the game because the combat is engaging immediately, like, what doesn't it kill?
No
the game
one
for them?
freaking enjoys it, bro.
Like, what I'm saying is, like, it's easy
No
to
one
say, like,
liked
you make
it.
the game easier
I
and
didn't
everyone's
see
happy,
a
but it
single
doesn't
one that
take.
was like,
Like,
wow,
a
this
lot of
is
people
good.
prefer the game
No.
to like actually have some challenge in it. Like, for example, right? Okay, so here's the thing, right? So every night I go home and I play, and I like do test runs of everything, right? And it's like, if we made it so that there wasn't any challenge for me in Act 1, I wouldn't play the game anymore.
Surround
But
him.
that isn't helping anyone, right? Like, I need to keep playing the game every night to
got
actually enjoy
complicit.
myself. It's like, if I'm not enjoying myself, then it's like, how can I even develop the game correctly? So on some level, it's like it has to be fun for me. And I know that if you
He's making
like,
a game for himself.
if you
Dude,
get to
I
the
don't
point
want
of
to
having,
intense.
like,
Every
everything
single
just be
pack
trivial,
is
it's like, well,
intense.
okay, like,
dude.
why am I even playing this anymore? So that there has to be some level of challenge. Now,
There's just a lot. I just thinking more on this specific. There's a big spectrum here. Like, for example, I know I have seen the feedback of Act 1 minus Canopy and Mana feel generally good on the pacing, the speed of monsters. You feel like you can almost do no-hit runs, is like kind of what people have said. And then you get to Act 2, and it's not too bad at the very start, and then you get to the like Halani gates, and it's like, okay, now everything's gone off the
the
reservation.
Farah didn't have a problem.
And then you get
there's the
so
Titan Valley as well.
I've seen a decent spectrum like that, and I 100% want to fix that. Like,
right.
so that's why I was asking you for your example, because there's just a lot of people on the different spectrums here that want different things, and so I'm trying to understand what you know, how much we would need to change things for the discussion with you as opposed to with other players.
Right.
So that's all I was asking there, because I do intend on slowing down those extreme zones, and I think there are like 10 of them. And I think that is at least something hopefully a lot of viewers are going to be happy to hear, which is like, okay, cool, they're going to address those. So the Dreadnought, Exile, you've got Canopy. We're going to start, those are the most egregious I'm listing. I'm not saying those are the only problematic ones.
Yeah.
And then you got areas like Titan Valley, which is just like riddled with annoying monsters that are just like out of control. And you've got heaps of this. So start there, we keep working backwards until we catch as much as we can. And it's going to be a lot of different changes. So one could be, okay, like, why is it that there are 6 different varieties, of which all are just, as you've, you know, heard people mentioning, and I think I saw something that you heard thing, which is they're playing POE1, I think, which I thought was a funny comparison.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. They need to, not every monster needs to slow down, but like, for example, some of them can be fast, and maybe the answer is, okay, they should be weaker. So sure, they engage you, but they die quick. Or maybe the answer is like, there's too many of them, and then in a lot of the cases it's going to be like, okay, here's 6 different types of packs. Well, 6 of them are fast. Well, that's a problem. 5 is fast. That's a problem. 4 are fast. That's a problem. 3 are fast. That's probably still a problem. But 2 are fast. That's probably more acceptable. So you get 2 really slow, maybe 2 fast, 2 kind of in the middle, and you get some big slow monsters, some small monsters, and that distribution isn't quite right in a lot of zones. And so this is why, again, why I asked, because I would say some zones have a nice, here are the slow monsters, and here are the fast monsters, and it's kind of cool. You get this like up and down pacing, and it can feel kind of fun, where sometimes you're on edge and sometimes you're just obliterating things. And then you get the ones where you're like, holy, I've just been zoned 3 zones in a row where I'm just on edge, getting swarmed, like absolutely, and that creates this extreme negative feeling of like, I can't do the things that my skills want me to do, and that is bad, and that I definitely want to fix that, and I want to fix that imminently. Like, I'm going to immediately get on to doing that. So there is a huge range of spectrum of players that want different things here.
Yeah.
And I want to at least address that thing, because I know that's just bad. Like, I think that's bad for everyone. I don't think that's bad for some people. I think that's bad for, I mean, everyone. It's for a huge majority. So we can start there for sure.
But to be clear, though, like, we still do need to have some monsters that are faster than the player. It can't be that none are. And like things like the wolves in the second area, like, if we didn't have that, then I think that you wouldn't even, like, once again, you wouldn't get the feeling of like, you would immediately out of the gate have the game as just trivial. And like, I think that really would hurt the game a lot. Like, I think that would be a big problem. So it's really just a question of like,
You just need to be like 2% slower,
that are
bro.
frustrating, we'll address them, but like,
Or make us
it isn't the
5%
case that just
faster.
everything needs to be slower. It really,
No.
really would.
Okay, make us
So
5%
I think
faster
there's
and
another
probably
thing you-
fixes it.
I was just gonna say, I think
Sorry.
there's almost like 2 different player bases, where there are a lot of people that just want to blast and maybe have challenging bosses, and then there are people that want like the entire gameplay, every second to second moment to be like very engaging. So it's I
Well,
guess like
I don't know that I don't know that I agree with that either, because I don't think it's so binary as you say. Like, there is a middle ground that will work. Like, I'm almost certain that there is. And,
I don't think there is.
The
I
way that
disagree
you
with
get
him on
there,
this.
is by just looking at the individual cases and just fixing every one of them until like the rough edges are all sawed off, all sanded off, and then and then it kind of works.
I leveled it with bows, but it was before they nerfed the EXP and stuff. And then once I got frenzy charges, then I switched into lightning spear, storm lance, and jumping on it. So I've just been using these same skills where I do this and then jump on it. That's how I leveled it. And then if I froze them, I would get things, but I didn't have consistent freezes. And then you get Sniper's Mark and use that for frenzy charges later. So I don't know how I would do it again. And I'm not going to subject myself to doing that again,
Like, you'll get to a
unfortunately.
point where
I don't know, maybe at
like,
some
you
point
just
I'll
don't
test it
get
out. But
frustrating
not right now.
experiences anymore, because we've managed to sort of fix all of those cases. And
Not right now.
And that point won't be in a situation where just everything is slow. Like, we really will still have a level of engagement.
I guess the problem with everything being so fast, and part of why I pointed out like everything almost, is because it's such a heavy focus on combo gameplay right now, but it feels like the speed of the monsters are heavily incentivizing like one button builds. Like, as soon as I could, I was like, the less I can do, the better everything will feel, just because I don't have time to set up combos. We're getting completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, the
that's why
monsters
I
are
pointed
too
out
fast for
everything is a bit of
combos.
an issue.
Well, it isn't necessarily the case that you have to use a combo on every monster.
You had to
Like,
with your
if you've got
balance.
stuff that's fast, you don't use combos on that, and because it's disrupting you.
Everything
But
was
then
too
also,
fast.
it is also important that monsters do disrupt your combos, because otherwise your gameplay just degenerates into doing like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like, the monsters have to be able, like, there has to be situations where your plans are disrupted in order to like have a situation where
Doing the
you
combos and squeeze and
can
get in
respond to
is the
things, like you actually
engaging
get some counterplay on stuff like that.
play.
And so the monster designs have to reflect that on some level. But
Right now it's you
always
die
an
if you
amount,
try to do a
There's an
combo,
amount of
though.
that you need, and there's probably too much of that going on. But you still need an amount of that, or it just becomes all flat.
We've been talking about, like, look, the last few days we've been talking about some like pretty extreme considerations and things, and like, talking about the monster life is the main thing, because which you could argue is player damage, right? Obviously,
Monster life is the easiest way. If everything is too weak, then monster life is the way to solve it.
If there's a few outliers of builds that are find the tricks to do good, then yes, it is. I bring all players up or bring all monsters down. They're the same thing. And like, we have been talking about a lot of this, and like actually going like, what would we be willing to do here? How would we be willing to change it? What are we willing to test? What are we willing to try? And like, there's heaps of things on the cards here. Like, kind of honestly, everything's kind of been on the cards, as long as we don't feel like at the end of the day that we've taken the teeth out of the game in terms of difficulty. Like, that is what's important to us, is making the game still have a feeling of hard, being difficult. And I would say out more than just bosses. Like, it shouldn't just be that the bosses are the only thing that's difficult.
Sure.
And we certainly don't want it to devolve into what I would argue is, well, I know this is like way further away, but like, again, we're talking about changing up. It could be changing anything here. The one thing I also worry about is getting to the thing where I would argue a lot of the difficulty in POE1 outside of a lot of the boss fights is just like, you occasionally just instantaneously die to something and you're like, I don't even know what I died to. And a lot of that is where you get like, it isn't necessarily from monsters being too hard, and it is often from just like spam and too much stuff going on, combined with like daemons and volatiles and all of that. So
Yeah.
making sure we avoid that as well. But it does mean in the sense that then you kind of get that like, okay, you have to have
Man,
it be
I
that you're
cannot
engaging
get
with the
my
monsters
maps
for it
to
be
upgrade.
difficult.
What the heck?
Which kind of means monsters do need to actually pose a threat, and you need to be able to see what they're doing and react to what they're doing. Now, I wouldn't say that's universally perfect, but that's an argument for like, not wanting to get it to the point where it's too much of that, just like...
Anyways, they
I
severely
guess that's an
nerfed
argument for
loot.
de-swarming things, as you said, which...
It's just like, they're saying they didn't change anything. They changed the ailment scaling and reduced our damage. So you can't actually apply ailments. So you get no sort of breathing room. It's okay if the monsters are faster than us, but we should be able to do ailments to freeze them to counteract that, and they took that away. They severely reduced the loot. So now you're playing with worse items, which mean less power. 3, they nerfed the skills significantly. It's like those three. How do they not see that those three things are the problem?
Yeah, it is like an important.
Why do
thing,
I see this and they don't?
It is kind of getting towards that, and that contributes towards where
I
things
don't
are slow and stuff.
understand
But
what's
I
going on
wouldn't
here.
personally argue that every zone feels swarmy. I think there's a swarmy argument. I 100% want to focus on solving first, and then there's like a certain things are fast and certain things are slow, and maybe there's that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure where I was going with that, but I just want to. I guess it's more just giving my sense of where I want to make sure we don't end up is in that place, just to make sure, and we want to be real careful about not getting to that point. So I would actually say we're probably a bit too far there in a lot of the areas, but I don't think it is a universal problem right now.
I think also, especially, even though warrior is, or May skills are particularly strong now due to being able to use a shield, but it can feel very bad that like every damage node like has a downside, whereas isn't really the case for the other builds, where like with the maces, it's like, yeah, you get 40% increased damage, but 5% reduced attack speed. And reduced attack speed, especially with all these combos, can feel particularly bad compared to others. I would say like maces are kind of good right now, but a lot of that is the shield.
I actually do think there is a bit too much of the, I actually like a little bit of like, he may be a cluster or two having the kind of upside downside, but it's honestly something we've, aside, you know, obviously keystones have upside downside, but yes, there's true that probably there's kind of too many passives, especially in the warrior section, that are a little bit too giving downsides, where it was something honestly that's a bit experimental to POE2. Like,
yeah,
we didn't have that in POE1, and we were like, let's give it a go, and maybe we went a little bit overboard with it in that part of the tree, but I don't hate it as a concept. I think it's just that it's a little bit too saturated there. I will agree with you there 100%.
GCP.
I would say, as people hopefully would know, we're going to iterate on that passive tree a million times, so
yeah,
it'll find its sweet spot for sure, and it's definitely not there yet.
I do think it's important though that like keystones can be felt, and so
well, we're not talking keystone.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say keystone. I was saying notables can be felt, and so part of the reason for the upside downside thing is that like it lets you do a larger damage bonus because it's got the downside, and therefore you're going to really feel that damage bonus.
No, they are
And
good.
So, like,
I think it's the frequency of them in that part of the tree.
But I'm saying
What
you can
just
find another
happened
way
there?
maybe to do that.
I don't even know what killed me.
I do think that like having that feeling of like I really felt that node.
Some blood thing off screen.
Like that is a thing that you
Or
do
some
get,
invisible projectile.
and that, you know,
that is important in our passive tree philosophy. Yes,
I think they're just in denial
the before
about
and
what's
after
going
of taking a
on.
notable,
I just don't
especially
understand.
the first, obviously nodes become less valuable as you get higher level because they're just
I think they want a
saturating into
completely
diminishing
different
return.
game,
Well,
and they
not
don't
diminishing returns,
understand.
but more like,
They want a much
you know,
harder
the
game than the average
500
person
to
wants.
520% increase is going to
And they
matter
didn't
less
think
than
what they
the
had
0 to
before
20.
was good.
But
It's just
especially for the
crazy.
first chunk of the game, we want it to be that every notable is felt. Like you're like, I definitely now can feel the difference, and I would say, a lot don't hit that mark. Some do, some don't, but yeah, we've been trying new things there, so
yep.
Bit of a pivot.
Yeah. So the next question, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you have only done like the crazy large changes between seasons, and you talked a little bit about that you felt forced to treat the game like it was released. Are you still happy with doing only large balance changes between patches, or is that something you maybe revisit with something like every 2 weeks, especially with like a warning period, like changes are coming in 4 days?
It's hard. I don't think that you can just nerf people in the middle of a league no matter what. Like, we get highly punished for that. Look, I mean, people are going to be unhappy about nerfs whenever we do them, as you know, like as we can see. But like, it is actually strictly worse if you get nerfed while you're playing the game. Now we're in a position now where, because things are, like, are probably possibly undertuned, that we can just do mid-league buffs, and so that means you'll see way more patch changes happening now, because like it's okay to do major buffs during the middle league,
which we're
just
doing.
can't do. Which we're doing now.
I generated a relatively large list yesterday. Which I know we have that whole you know, philosophical discussion earlier about player power. Well, like, there are many builds, many skills that are underneath, because obviously otherwise I wouldn't be yesterday have spent a good chunk of the day going through and assessing what needs to be increased, right? So like,
yeah, well then why did you say it earlier? Like, oh, I don't know what changed. Nothing changed. Nothing's wrong with the player power. That's what you said at the start of the interview, bro. Why did you say
we'll get
that?
to that sweet spot for sure.
I don't
but, like,
understand.
I mean, it's
dude.
going to end up feeling like a season of buffs this time, and the reason why it'll
Yeah.
feel that way is because, like, the medicine has gone down now. Now we can start on all of the actual, like, you know, like all of the positive buff parts.
Oh
And so
my
it's like
gosh.
like last season we just weren't.
I can't
in a,
even with
like,
these
in a
guys, man.
situation where we could even
I'm
do that,
losing
right?
all
Because,
hope.
like, you
It's
already
happening
had-
in real time.
we
Oh,
genuinely
what are
tried.
they saying?
We genuinely try to. We
Dude,
had
they
this
need a
plan of,
like actual community
bring all the
manager that
top-end
does these
outliers
interviews
down, and then
or something.
make sure everything is
Oh
feeling
my
good in the
gosh.
middle. And we started
fumbles
with the bringing
here.
outliers down.
They're not making
And
me
then all
feel
of a sudden,
better.
and
They're
this is
making
why
it
the
worse
patch
with
notes were so
everything they
late.
say.
We were like, oh no, like we're like running out of time here. Like we thought we could get through more of the balance and
Yeah.
start bringing more things up.
It was
we didn't
definitely
get
rushed.
to do all that we had hoped to do. But like by that point, it's kind of too late, and so like we're going in, and then now our idea here is like we thought we were. Like literally up until the last minute, we're like, okay, we're gonna keep going. Right, let's start buffing. Let's look at weak things, and like it just ended up being too time consuming. And so the answer here is now though, it's like, well, let's just keep going. And so obviously the first few days is really like looking at all the player feedback and going, what are the biggest problems, right? And this is where you get the Act 3 changes, you get the minion builds, you get the big things. And we are trying to address all of that. And I understand just game-wide balance is a big thing.
You know, the other
But
problem
now it's
is
just gonna
like
be like,
people will quit
alright,
before
this
they
skill,
do
this
the
skill,
next
this
round of
skill, this skill,
changes.
this skill, this skill, this
They
skill,
just
like,
need
let's
to
go,
not
that's what we're
release
changing,
it
what
till
are
it's
we changing, what are we
ready,
changing, going
and they
through
need to
every
stop
single corner,
overestimating
every
how
single
quickly
skill
they
tree, and every
could.
single
They were
reservation,
quiet
and
on
then we're
it.
gonna
They
go,
selected
okay,
this
well,
date that they
we've still
couldn't
got
hit once
Blood
again,
Rage
and then they
Activated
rushed it
Shield
out
are
without the
sitting there at
balance
0%,
pass.
0.1% played. Okay, well, clearly not doing well
Like,
enough. Let's target that. And
that's
just
the
go on.
problem.
We're just going to keep iterating through.
Why do you
until we can get
need
as far as we
500
can,
balance
and,
passes after you
maybe we
release
catch
the
everything,
thing?
Maybe we don't, but like the intention is
I
to
don't
not
get it.
stop just because the release day happened. Like we had a goal, we didn't achieve that goal.
And why
so
and
we
why
just
did they
need to keep
change
going.
so much?
And
so
do you have
much.
like a rough idea? Like you were saying, you were working on a lot of
Yeah,
things to be
I
buffed.
feel
Do you have
like
a rough
too.
idea on
They
how
did
early
it
we could
because
be
of
seeing
last
those already?
epoch. They rushed it.
Well, we
Now
all
they
say now
got caught with
continuous.
their hand in the cookie jar
Okay, so
and
this was
ruined
the 2
everything.
days. Yeah,
And now
this
they're
was the
trying to
rush that's
pretend like
happened.
that's not what
But,
they
okay,
actually
so,
did.
like, one of the things I
But
think that
there
was majorly
ain't no one
misinterpreted
gonna
that things
convince
we're
me at
working
this
on
point
post
that
was,
they
like,
didn't rush
this was
it
the things we were working
to
on
stick it to
that
last
day.
epoch.
Like literally, that
Like-
was that day's worth of work that we were talking about, and then the next day it's like, well, now we're doing this Act 3 stuff, and like today we'll be doing a bunch of other stuff, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's like every day we're going
I was
to be
hoping
like
I would
continuing
hit
to iterate and
plus
do stuff. It's
skills.
like, so the idea that someone's like, oh, they're not even acknowledging
Rip.
this thing. It's like, well, come on, we've literally had like that was one work day.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's more stuff coming, right? Like,
Which
you know,
we need to be more clear about.
Sure,
So,
sure.
Yeah, but you didn't say that. It's
try to be more
communication. You guys
more
suck at
specific about
communication.
that, but yes,
I mean,
like,
the one,
And you're
the
not
one that I
even
found
owning up
most
to
funny with
some of the
that is
stuff
like,
you
I'm
did,
like,
dude.
okay, we're gonna look into all this Act 3 stuff.
I
But
don't
in the
know,
meantime,
man.
we'll just add some checkpoints, and it's like. The reason I put that in there is because like that's literally a thing we
This
already noticed
project was
bad. It's
like,
it's
if
not
you
like
turn
hurting
in a
anyone to add some
half-ass
more.
project
So it's like the idea
that's
that we're like, oh,
due,
we're just
that
going
you
to
worked
solve the
on
whole thing
last
by adding
minute or
checkpoints
something.
was like ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
obviously that wasn't the case. It was just like, here's just the thing that I can just tell someone, hey, go do this while I'm looking at this, you know, and like, and so they did that, and so then that'll go in the next version. But you know, like it's like,
Man, I'm
then
trying
it's like
so
the
hard,
next, like,
so hard to be positive and give them the benefit of the doubt, but like, after listening to this, I don't think they deserve it. Between this and the thing they pulled last time where they completely put POE1 on hold, it's still not going to be released for 2 months. And now they have to deal with this, which is going to make that fall apart. That's the other part of it. Now they have to do this and try to fix this again on fire and delay POE1.
4
It's like, what are you guys doing?
After that, I'm like sitting there going through areas and trying to work out what's, you know, like what needs to improve about them.
Yeah, so checkpoints is kind of something I want to talk about with the large zones. and
Yeah,
stuff.
they
We
should have just
posted,
delayed
you made a
that
post yesterday
and
talking
done the
about
POE
that,
one too.
so
I'm
Act 3
100%
zones would
on
be
board with
reduced
you.
in size.
Hey, you're kind of smart
but
here. This is
as
what
a
they should
core
have done.
idea,
They should have done the
part
next
of
POE
Exile 2 being
league,
more at, like,
released
doing
it,
one
finished it,
playthrough
and then worked on
finishing
this.
up one
But
character rather than do like 5 to 10 characters. And the
like
people
not
that are playing
releasing
Dota
anything
Stars
at all would have been better than the
I mean,
patch
I
they
don't-
released.
Once again, it's not like I'm not targeting. one or
That's
the other.
ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like,
The
I don't know, man.
Your second, I mean, like if you're doing multiple playthroughs, the game is a lot faster just due to the like items and stuff that you have. Like that is definitely the case. You know, like
well, a big thing that's
like,
missing.
making multiple characters in a league is certainly something that I expect and want you to be able to do.
Well, a big thing that's missing comparatively to POE1 is our ability to speed ourselves up, right, on our second characters. In POE1, you have things like 7 step and stuff like that, and at least so far we don't have that many alternatives for that, and our movement abilities are completely different. No Quicksilver, so even though like we can kill the bosses faster, but since the zones are so large, we can't get like the same amount of speed on our second and third character onwards that we would be expecting in POE1.
Well, is the zone largeness issue like I mean, Act 3 was the one I would say that was like pretty obvious as far as like things like that.
No,
go.
it's every
But if it
single
comes to other
zone,
zones, it's just
and
the
the light
Like, also the other
radius,
thing is that,
and the fact that I don't go to a corner and I barely
generally
miss it by 2
speaking,
pixels,
like,
and then I got to
once
walk
you
around in
know
all these different
how the zone
areas and
works,
backtrack. And
there
it
are
feels
ways then
terrible.
to like to
You spend more
to,
walking in this game than playing the thing. It's like
know what you're looking
intensity,
for and sort of how to go
walking and
places and what to
backtracking.
do.
Intensity,
So to the
walking and
extent
backtracking.
that isn't the case. That's why, like,
It's
when we're looking
bad.
like that's why when we're looking at Act 3, it's not just make this zone.
It's too
smaller,
intense,
like, well,
followed
what's
by
actually
too
the
much
reason
walking.
Why a player who is experienced is not able to find the thing that they're looking for, right? And that's where we come to like, oh, there's this whole area over here that you could just walk down and you have no idea whether or not that's important or not.
Is the
And so
zone
then you end up
large in
doing that
any
and
of
it
the
just wastes so much
areas?
of your
I
time.
don't know.
But, like, the
These
intention is to
maps
make
are
it so that, like,
huge.
if
Every
you know
single
what you're
map is
doing,
huge
then
that
you
I'm
know where
doing
to
right
go,
now.
like, you don't have a
What is
problem.
he talking about?
So like that's why a lot of the changes in Act 3 are just like, okay.
I don't know
yeah,
if I
you get
like.
this- you randomly get bad
Is
luck
my
and then
brain
the camera
broken?
went
I don't
and
live in the
stupid
same
wide
reality as
fork
these
thing
guys.
is, and,
Clearly
takes ages
something's
to go
up.
one way or the other. It's like, you get rid
Am
of all
I the
that
one
stuff
that's
and then
off
the
base
zone would
here?
feel so
'Cause
large
I
because,
don't
like,
know.
you know where you're going. You
Do I need to like see a professional, seek some
Well,
help
I
or
do know the
something?
layout, so
I might be
they are
splitting
very
here.
large, even with knowing the layouts, just because our movement speed is like relatively slow. Like even like Matlan waterways, before they're getting reworked, hopefully the rework makes them a lot slower. But I know exactly where I'm going. I'm not like backtracking into the wrong area, making it
Yeah,
longer.
so that-
it's just
Yeah, but now
a
they're
lot of
gonna.
zones are very long.
This is the
Like,
problem.
I
It's the
understand
same
that area is a
team.
challenging
So
one.
now
It's
they're gonna
hard for us
go
to
try to
actually
solve
fix,
this,
like,
and then the
trivially because,
POE1 thing is gonna
just the way
suffer,
that the level generation works there.
and then we're gonna have another thing. It's.
like.
I know
not
that
like-
that's what's
like,
going to happen.
we-
They already
other
repeated the
areas we can
cycle.
change the layouts
And they
very
set
easily because,
themselves
like,
up
the
once
way that
again
our
by
generation works, that area
over-promising
has a very fixed type
and
of
releasing
layout.
something too
And so
quickly
it's going to take more
that they
effort,
can't
which is why it was
hit.
on the list because I didn't have an immediate like thing I could do that day to sort that one out. But like I understand that that's an area of concern for people. But like once again, it's like that's a specific area, and I wouldn't say that like that the issues that area has would apply to the whole game. You know, like that's just an area, a specific problem for that particular
So,
area.
is speeding the player up an option? Like, is that something you'd be willing to consider?
Yep,
Well, it
5%
sort of depends
speed.
on how it was done.
Just
like-
5% movement speed. Walk speed.
We've discussed some things in that area like before. I'm not necessarily against that, but it would have to be done in a way that didn't compromise the combat and compromise like the
Give us 5% movement speed right now,
like, it shouldn't
permanently,
the
and I'll be
case that
happy.
you'd- Because this is the issue with this, right? Is that speeding up the player is if you speed up the player to the point where they're once again faster, then always faster than the monsters, then you get back to the like combat doesn't work anymore.
No, you
like,
don't want the
become an optional
large
kind of, like,
zones,
situation
though.
again. So like we
Because the
have to-
monsters
we have
are
to find a way to
unrewarding.
do that
Nothing
that
drops
wasn't
loot
gonna,
except for
like,
rares.
break
So
that
you want to get
as
into the
well.
next
So
zone
there
and
might
kill
be
the
something
rares.
We can do there, and we've kind
So
of been
loot's a
discussing that.
problem too. I don't want to play a
because I'm
big
not, like,
density.
I'm not
I don't
exactly one to
care.
subject people
They don't
to,
drop
like,
loot.
running when they're not doing anything,
Where's the
right?
loot? I've
But,
gotten almost nothing.
It's just a question of finding a way to do that. That's not gonna.
It's hard to
If
say
you don't
anything
juice, the
specific
loot is
because, like,
low.
There's a little bit of like the moment we say a specific solution.
That's a power
people
problem
might
too.
Hold us accountable to that in a degree, and,
And like
hence
we
why
haven't tried it yet, so we
but
can't.
we
Like,
have been
commit to
talking
something,
about it. We do have some options we want to try. We just don't want to talk about them before we try them.
Right.
But like, yes, I agree. Now you mentioned one other thing there, just because I don't want to gloss over things too much, which is you mentioned the Twink unique problem.
Yeah.
Which is 7 league steps. There are many more items in POE1 that you can use to streamline the efficiency on reroll. That is still very deficient. Yes, it will come in time, I assure you. It's just a matter of we did higher level uniques this time. Obviously, they're not going to have low level item requirements. Maybe next time there's a more even split. I don't know. We just need to keep going with the uniques, and we'll eventually get there. We do have some designs that achieve specifically the low level high movement speed boots. We do have that as a thing that I definitely already have designed. I think it's just waiting on the art, and then it's going to go in. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more of those coming over time as well. Like that will solve itself in due time for sure. And
but is there, like, the question I was, okay, so is for damage, the twinking situation is not bad right now, right?
it's
Like
not
for
as
damage.
bad. It's not as bad. Again, you can kill stuff fast.
It's the movement speed specifically that we're.
And the fact that we don't have movement abilities, like, in the same way. Like, there's only so much speed you get with shield charge. Like, if I'm doing, like, a third or fourth character, I can definitely get enough damage, right? It's rough on my first character,
But you don't
at least
have to use movement abilities as the solution to this, and I would prefer that wasn't the solution, because then you end up with a kind of like pretty lame sort of gameplay thing going on there. Like, there's going to be a better way to improve that without having a movement ability
As
as a
said,
solution.
we have some things on the cards.
Yeah.
We just need to test them out and try them and be able to
Yeah,
actually have
they
a good
gotta
argument
add
as to
more
why they
rares,
are
like you're
work-
saying.
why they are
And the loot
good,
needs
and
to
we
be
convince
better.
ourselves.
You
Right.
gotta
"Damn, we should
have a
done this
reason
before,"
to get through.
or they're bad,
But
and we're like, here's why they're
okay,
bad. And we
here's
can
the
explain
counter
what we
to
tried
that
and why
though.
it's-
Here's where they messed that up. It takes a long time to navigate to find these corrupted zones. I played kind of a lot, or I feel like I played a lot, and I'm only halfway done with these corrupted zone things. Okay? So it's like, that's a problem in itself too. Because you need faster maps, because you gotta travel really, really far for the corruption. So they also need to then make the corruption appear all over the darn place.
bad. But yeah, again, we're always a bit on discussing what those will be.
Yeah,
because,
you can't craft anything.
yes,
It's
again,
already
they're being
RNG,
held accountable.
and the
People get their
orbs
hopes
just
up
don't
for it, and then
simply
we
drop
have to
enough.
say it doesn't work. So like, there's a little bit of like, let us just try these things, and then we'll see what we come up with, and we'll tell people the moment that we have it. But again, it's not a piece of. It certainly is something that's come up, and will come up every single repeat of the league, and so it's not like off our radar by any means.
That's good. So obviously a bit of a different question, but on console, debuffs have the option to be at the bottom of the screen. Could that be a toggleable option for PC? Just can be rough to like
Yeah,
move
yes,
your eyes.
It wasn't on my radar. We might be able to do something.
We have a full buff UI rework going on at some point soon. It was planned for earlier, where like so this can be part of the consideration, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, our UX guy's currently working on. Has it on top 5 of his list, kind of thing, of things that we're going to just do to improve the system.
That wasn't to do with moving them, but we can add that to the list of things that we might want
I mean,
to
it's
do.
the
If people-
whole
if people like it, we
they
do
can
it.
go behind the boss's life bars and you know all that problem, and hopefully if it's good enough as well, we can port that to POE1, because it's a more egregious problem there for sure.
Yeah. The next question is about in POE1 we have a lot of player agency over how we solve early problems. Like the skill tree has a lot of temporary fixes for a build early on, where if your gear isn't up to scratch, you can get 30 to like strength dex int, you can get leech, you can get resists, even like specific ones like fire, cold, lightning, etc. You can get very easy access to fixing mana and stuff like that, and a lot of things that are like temporary fixes that you later on fix with gear. And the crafting bench also helps a lot more with that in POE1. And I know runes are meant to be the solution here, but we don't really get enough sockets early on, we don't get enough gear early on, and we then don't have any way at all to really fix this.
So why?
Zizern's
why
getting to the good
getting enough
points
sockets
now.
early on?
Well, they're just not dropping. Even if you're checking the vendor, like I'm checking the vendor every time I level up, I'm disenchanting everything. I still don't get enough because the game is very difficult right now. So you try to keep getting gear upgrades. There is not enough loot. There is a lot of people complaining about not enough drops.
I don't get the same experience of not getting enough socketables personally. Like, I would say that probably 80% of the gear I'd be wearing pretty much through the whole campaign would have sockets like in there. So like if that's the case, then like there must be something I'm not understanding about like why that people feeling that way, because that's just like a totally different experience than what I see when I'm playing myself.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I would love to.
The intention.
Sorry, go on.
The intention is that you use socketables to fix those problems, and it is fundamentally identical to the crafting bench as far as the resultant, like ability to fix issues on your character. Like there's nothing about the crafting bench that really changes anything that way, other than it's being less intuitive to use for new players.
Well, it is
so
a lot
really it's just
stronger.
to make...
Well, there's the power. Yeah, there is the power.
Well, okay, so sure, there's the
yes.
power, but like, I mean, that's a different question again, right? Like, if you're talking about fixing problems, then that just comes down to the values on the mods, and like what those should be.
Which aren't necessarily right.
Right, but the thing is that it's supposed to be that you're getting enough sockets to be able to do that. And I mean, I don't buy stuff from the vendors. Just as a qualifying thing, that I don't buy socketables from the vendors and do that thing. I know people do that. That's not a thing that I'm doing. I mean, I might do it like if I've got like a stack of 9 shards and I'm like, okay, I want a socket right now. I might like do that, but generally speaking, that's not what I'm doing. So like, there's clearly some disconnect here, as far as like what the amount of loot that you're getting versus what I'm seeing, I suppose. So like, I guess I just need to understand why. Like, why does it feel so different for
It
different
might be
people?
it might have a relatively high swinginess or something that we need to find a way, like adding more. Like I know something that was
Quest
suggested was
rewards,
adding
give
more
some
artificers
artificial
orbs,
wards. Yep.
to fixed quest rewards through
Yep,
the game
there
to
you go.
minimize the RNG outcome.
Right.
Thank
Because
you.
we added those quite late, we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
end up putting them in
It's true.
the.
So that's something that we could definitely
What
do.
the
and
heck?
then you just get more of them
Did
during
you see those
campaign.
guys
I'd be
bug
totally
out there?
open to that. Like, that's totally reasonable.
A second thing I'd like to do soon is explore. I mean, sort of unrelated, but is that casters don't have their weapon crafting bench.
And we do need to.
and
We
so
do
we
need.
want to
We
add
do need to
sockets
fix.
caster
We have to add
weapons.
sockets to caster weapons. That needs to come as well.
Now there is one slight concern that I have seen echoed in a decent bit of feedback, which is that the runes are, which is mitigated with more artificer's orbs for sure, but the runes are creating a bit of a sense of making it like the thing with that the POE1 sockets created, which is like replacing items becoming slightly harder.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of just making sure we're careful about that as well. But being able to have more artificer's orbs and thus socket more gear will mitigate that, so that when you get your upgrade, you're able to add a socket to it.
But I would say that it's definitely the hard-coded drops that would be the thing that, because if it's not happening to everyone, then it is a thing that will, that would be a offset in that one.
But yeah, the caster weapons getting rune sockets and obviously runes for them, and adding more deterministic artificers orbs to the campaign is certainly two things on my immediate radar to help at least mitigate some of this. I might do a quick review on the power pass of the runes as well. I just don't want them to be too much about giving damage, but it might be a lot of the more utility and defensive ones are just on the weak side.
That was scary.
And,
Almost
those can
died there.
certainly come up immediately.
Well, the problem that you have...
It's a one-death map, by the way,
is
so I
that,
can't
so I
lose
sort of
it.
mentioned this earlier, but if the tools
get
that you
screwed.
have are too powerful, then the people who know to use them are benefited to a larger degree compared to people who don't. And what you're doing there is then you end up in a situation where content,
Okay, I can't avoid that
will,
slam at all.
You know, be
like I have to get hit by that.
it's just a new
Oh,
player goes
okay.
into this and it's like, well, I didn't know about
Kind
this,
of
and then
annoying.
like you get screwed over. And so like things like even nodes on the passive tree can be this way, where it's like, okay, well, you had to know to pick this, and if you didn't know to do that, then you're screwed, right? Like that's the kind of thing that's like a bit of a problem. And so that we just have to be really careful about that. And like that's actually one of the reasons, by the way, why lesser runes exist, because if you knew to put a lightning damage rune in your weapon, then you would just like completely like ridiculous compared to anyone who didn't know that. And so it's like you've got like, it shouldn't be that just a single, like there's a tool like that which you just with knowledge alone, it's like you're completely like you're completely overpowered compared to other people. So you
That's
just
how
have
it
to be,
was
like,
in
you should be really
POE1
careful
though.
with
If
that.
you didn't know how to
Well,
craft
it's
the +1
important-
wands, you struggled.
It's just important to make sure
You didn't
that
know about the
solutions are
crafting
ultra-
bench.
very front facing.
It was hard.
That passive tree stuff, you know, in POE1, sure, I agreed, and it seems obvious to a bunch of people, but then also there's two problems going on there in the POE1, which is it adds to a sense of complexity because it's like, here are the things you must know before you start playing to have a good time. And I know that's one small piece of that puzzle, or that problem. And the second thing is, looking at POE1 from that crafting bench, is that the crafting bench is in your hideout and not in any town, which I agree is a downside. Ideally, it would be more in your face. And so, like, a lot of people just forget to use it and forget that it exists. And that is a thing where, like, again, if you know, you know, and you have a good time, and if you don't know, you don't know, and you like, suffering. So whatever the solutions end up being, we definitely need to make sure are like very front-facing, in your face, and are like.
I swear, all these things to me have very obvious solutions. Okay, you give a crest reward. It's a rare with a guaranteed socket, and you give them one of each rune. Then you give them a quest where they cannot leave town until they put a rune in their weapon with the socket. And now they learned to put the rune into the socket. And now this goes away. You just force it with a tutorial.
Here's clearly the very intuitive way to solve these problems. So that's just an important piece of like philosophy we need to make sure we maintain.
A lot of
like,
that can be solved by
they're saying there's all these problems with the knowledge gain. Okay, like, I'm sorry, bro. Playing your game for a long period of time and then gaining knowledge, which I could use to exploit and do better in the economy and make guides and stuff, is the entire reason why I play your game. That's it. Why is this bad?
NPC early giving one of those like runes and even
I'm
telling
rewarded
you, hey, chuck this in your
for
weapon
playing
for
your
more damage
game.
if you're using a
Why
bow.
is that bad?
Well, it
would, I mean, surely, if the runes are there to solve problems, then ideally, we're not telling you exactly which one to use, right? Because it should be dependent on what your problem is. But we do need to make sure that people have got enough Artificer's Orb to make sure they can do that.
Yeah.
The main thing that I would
Okay, now we're finding lots of
but
corrupted zones.
you were
There's
talking
one
about
over
the
here and one
problem that
over
you're
here.
rewarded for knowledge, which I don't think necessarily is a bad thing. I think that is a good thing.
No,
And-
you 100% should be rewarded for knowledge. The question is, was the degree of the reward? Because if it is as high as like the point where, you know, just knowing this makes like doubles your DPS, then like that means that
So they've said a bunch of things. Now they're like
like,
backpedaling on stuff.
it
I
means
don't-
that
What are they doing in this interview, man? At least
like,
Ziz
surely
is
not
pushing
like
them
this
really
would have to
hard
be
on
harder.
this stuff, though. Ziz is doing a really good job of pushing them on these things and making them answer instead of the normal, like, super softball-y question stuff. So I'll give it to Ziz. I think he's doing a good job of going, hey, I don't agree with you. Yeah, exactly. Now they just said that. A second ago, that's not what he said. He said, well, if a player gets rewarded at all for knowledge, this is really bad. That's what he said like 3 minutes ago. What is he doing?
if that was the case.
I don't know,
like,
man.
I don't think that can be something that like we don't want to have.
They
to
need
make
to take
lots of
like a
time,
long
but
vacation
therefore, like, we have
because
to be a
they
little bit careful about that.
they're devoid of reality at the moment.
But yeah, there's some improvements around here to be made, and there's some good takeaways from that anyway, right? Like the determinism for sure, and I think it's also a matter of like, okay, I think there is a guaranteed rune from Ogden Village. Maybe that's too late. We should be doing that like earlier or having more of them. You know, again, more of that deterministic outcomes, but also maybe knowing that you're going to get that in advance would be helpful. I don't think we quite have that displayed, so it's like you know, some of those like the world map icons where you go and get a specific reward it's not necessarily explaining to the user what they're going to get, and so they might just be like, it's just another one of those. I don't need another tier 4 skill gem, but they don't. That's because maybe they think it's that. So yeah, bit of information improvements and a bit of just like some power adjustments, some more determinism, especially with Artificer's Orbs. I actually 100% agree with that. I think if we hadn't have added that system so late into the development, we would have actually put that more throughout 100% anyway, so we should just do it now. But yeah, well, 100% some improvements there.
Another thing I'm curious about then, I asked about the skill tree. Do you feel like the skill tree gives a good, or does a good enough job of doing temporary solutions right now that you can later out gear, or like, is that something you'd be open to
I think resist. There's no resist on the tree,
Well,
like
core
almost
philosophy
ever.
there was that
Where are the
gear should give you
resists?
base stats and the tree should multiply them, which makes the tree implicitly worse at then solving the problem. So the intention there is that now whether or not
That or they need to add one
If we
extra
haven't really
socket to every
rediscussed
piece
it
of
since
gear.
then, I still believe that's
Every gear
great
piece
thing
of
to
gear
have.
drops with one minimum socket starting in Act 2.
There aren't.
And
the other
every
thing,
piece of gear can
just
go
as a
up one
side note,
socket.
is that there aren't
And
rooms that
then
give you,
that solves that problem.
Right.
There's ways to solve these
And
things.
so that means that you can't solve that.
They're
through
just like
rooms, which is something that I brought up
basically ruthless
a bit
mentality.
ago, but like we didn't have time to look at what the
POE, if created by only the people who
sole
want
fear with
ruthless.
that is that it means that it is even harder now to replace an item with another
That
item.
is the concern.
Yeah, it is. That's why like something like 30 dex, 30 strength, etc. was obviously very nice in POE1. And it does feel a little bit like, oof, I wish I didn't have to take that, but that gives you like incentive to fix that through a year later. And obviously we have so much resist on the skill tree in POE1 too. I remember like, because the first time I played POE2, we didn't know anything about the skill tree and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, I was in like Act 2 somewhere, and I hadn't pre-planned my day, I hadn't like looked at the data mines or anything like that. So I was like, okay, let's go look at the skill tree where the resists are, because I'm like 10%, 15% on the different res, so I'll pick up 15 on the skill tree. And there was just that one in like warrior left start, and I was very surprised for that. So like, what's the reason for not having that much resist on the tree?
Good question.
Because once again, as Mark said, the tree is the theory of it is that the tree enhances what your items are doing, in order to make the but I mean, look, there's something to think about again. Like
Yeah,
there might be something to that we should be reconsidering.
Yeah.
Like
We'll 100% go have a discussion about this after.
I think they should.
Sure.
They need to roll
I
that
certainly have a whole
back.
bunch of thoughts on this real quick, and I definitely want to go over it and just reevaluate this, because like we did make a lot of these philosophical decisions, right? Where like tree should multiply, obviously aside from the tributes, and gear should give the base, and like, you know, because an alternate solution might just be that the resistances given by the runes are like way too low as well, right? Like that certainly, because if you think of like the tree for one on obviously POE1, and you combine that with the crafting bench on POE1, like the amount of resistances you're getting there, even from the lowest tier crafts and the tree, is enough to certainly be able to solve any problem. So there's a little bit of just like making sure we don't want to make it too trivial. Well,
the other thing as well is that the monsters are balanced, assuming a different amount of resist than they were in POE1. So that like changes things a little bit as well. You know, like the expectation is not that you have like high resistances through the game necessarily. Like the expectation is that, the expectation is that you should be able to get through from merely overcoming the negative resistances you get from going through the acts. Like if you're at zero.
Call. Yeah, we're just listening to this Zizaran interview and losing all hope in the game for all future, and I don't know. Now they're bringing it back with a couple things that are hopeful, because now they're like, okay, maybe we just need to completely redesign that, which is kind of what I want to hear at the moment, because what they're saying outside of that, I don't think they're thinking correctly.
That should be enough, and then any
yeah, outside of that, I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty tired from working and then trying to squeeze out videos.
But if the monster life,
can't
or
complain.
monster damage is not calibrated correctly, then it won't feel that way to the player. But like that was kind of like balancing around zero.
How about you?
Was
How are
like
you doing?
Another idea that we had to try and make it so that you always knew the amount of resistances you were supposed to have. Like being that like if the number is red, you need more, and if the number is not red, then you have enough. Like that was kind of the theory in order to make it more obvious. What people are supposed to do there.
The other thing about the tree that can be a bit tricky here is that when you have that problem, like you probably have that problem immediately, where you're like, oh, I'm dying to all this fire damage. I don't have enough fire resistance. The answer can't be like, okay, I need to look at my tree and get some fire resist, because that's too late, right? Like you need to solve this problem more immediately. Right. So having a more immediate solution is ideally what it would be. So ideally there you'd be like, okay, I'm going to swap this item for this item, and or maybe put this rune in, and now I might have another go and have a good time. Where if the answer is like, okay, there's resistance nodes over here, I just need to get 6 more levels so I can get them to then go and fight the boss. Like, I understand there's a level of like, obviously they're good at forward thinking problem solving, but like when you're like in the moment and you're like, damn, I'm struggling right now, what am I going to do right now? It needs to be a more immediate solution, and that's where the passive tree solves it in one regard but doesn't solve it in another regard, and it's important that yes,
frozen.
The runes are there to solve that problem, and certain items are there. And sure, it's easy it is not necessarily incorrect to say that hasn't those tools aren't as readily available as they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think part of it is that we're definitely not dropping enough gear. Like the state of my gear, it's quite rough. Like a lot of the things I've found throughout the campaign ends up being 1 or 2 stat items, if that.
But isn't that just the? But like, okay, but this is the thing I would say about that is like, okay, when you're saying your gear isn't good enough, you're also just saying the monsters are too powerful. Like it can just be the monsters. Like I don't think that it needs like. There's an element here of like you might just be conditioned to wearing rares in every slot all the time, which doesn't have to be the case.
Well,
like the gear power is entirely relative to monster power. So if you're saying your gear isn't good enough, it doesn't have to be the gear needs to get better. It can just be that the monsters are too hard.
Sure, if you're talking about also like damage and like I said speed, but
yeah, except for the.
Can you give me an idea then?
But that's
Oh
important
my
though, because one of the
goodness.
things that POE2 has gotten us is
Okay. I fundamentally disagree there. You should solve it with gear because you're rewarding them for playing the game. Solving it by lowering the monsters, you don't feel that or understand that with your power versus getting the dopamine hit of getting an upgrade at some point. What is he talking about? I don't think that's the same either.
Rares like halfway through Act 1 anymore. Like you actually do, and what that actually means is that you have situations where you change from a rare to a magic. In some cases, you're like changing around your gear through the campaign, and it results in way more like gear upgrades as you go through the campaign. Like there's way more often because you'll downgrade to a blue, but then you'll find a
Well, before this patch, I would say it was more casual friendly, but a harder game.
The amount of gear changes that are happening
now, I think it's less casual friendly and a much harder game. Near impossible for beginners.
We would lose out on that. And
it's near impossible for veterans. Dude, I struggled in the campaign so hard. So hard.
It doesn't necessarily say that the gear isn't exactly the right place, but what I am saying is that like it isn't just buff items. Like,
I specifically haven't taken a day off of work in like 40-something days, so I carved out time to like play it, and I was the only reason why I kept playing and got to this point is because I took the time off. Had I had a vacation, I probably would have quit this league, and I wouldn't be playing right now. That's how hard the game was, and unfun the campaign was.
A large chunk of the majority of the currency
it's so
in Act 1,
ridiculous.
where maybe people will find as much as like 3 to 10 exalts in Act 1, and then find 0 in Act 2 and 3, so it seems like very early heavy.
I can't really explain why that would happen.
You lowered all the loot. What do you mean? You could feel it.
Change. The only thing that changes.
You could completely feel that you nerfed the loot, dude.
Exist.
Now are they saying they didn't nerf the loot when they said they nerfed the loot before?
Magic monsters increases. And due to the way the currency drops work in POE2, the more of those you get, the more rare currency you'll get, which means that like it just feels like you get more currency. So like that isn't a.
Bro, I'm low on currency and I've been mapping.
Like, you
okay.
should be getting more currency as you go through the acts for sure. Like that
yeah,
is as far as
I'm still don't have.
Times I've been joking about making new characters to farm currency, and a lot of people like said they agreed. So
thankfully, we can relatively easily, if we need to, pretty much after this, add some logging for that and go and see what's actually happening.
But that is unusual. Like I can't explain why that would be the case.
I concur.
I feel extremely gear starved even at this
point.
point.
If that is the case, which isn't necessarily true, but it could be. We're never going to rule out any bug or unintended thing where we can get some logging for that relatively fast and just
here's what's going to happen.
Actually see what's happening.
But I also
they're going to go and investigate it and figure out that like half the loot isn't dropping in the entire game. That would be hilarious, right guys? Right guys, that's what they're going to find. There's a severe bug and nothing is dropping as much loot as it's supposed to outside of Act 1. That would be funny.
Because like, it's like I wouldn't say that every time I want 6 mods I can get them, but I would say that I'm using exalts like all through the campaign. I'm using regals all through the campaign. I'm like rolling like from up from whites to rares,
what?
Like, pretty
is he insane?
As you're going through. So like there's something
I couldn't even sustain regals to regal my fucking gear.
Yeah, I mean, even like I would say myself,
I couldn't even regal my gear, dude.
And stuff to use. Like
I did not have regals, man.
Not on the rich end during the campaign.
Well, how many is a few?
I'd say through the campaign I dropped probably 4 regals.
Well, hang on, but we're not talking about dropping only. We're talking about disenchanting too, right?
So
Disenchanting, you're
because
collecting
of
blues?
crafting being so RNG, I will generally have opted in. I've tried both, obviously, between like disenchanting, but I find that I benefit more from gambling than from actually trying to crafting. My experience with crafting is picking
Well,
up
if
every
you're-
blue, looking for one stat, regaling, and then that missing and the item not being usable. So
If you're not disenchanting rares, then you certainly won't get a lot of regals. Like
sure,
that
but
is
I've
the
tried
case.
both.
I don't ever disenchant any rares. Why would
Well,
you ever do
I
that?
can't say
when the
much
gold
as to
is
that,
more,
but,
so
like that is
they're
the
expecting
reason you
us
don't
to
have
do
regals
that?
If you're, if you know, like
The
that is
goal
where,
is
like,
to get me
the
to
primary
go to a
source of regals
separate
through the campaign
vendor
would be
and
discount.
disenchant rares.
Like that isn't to say that gambling isn't better. Maybe it is, but
Right.
you know, like that. It
But
does
I want
explain that
gold.
particular-
Then if I have a
particular
good
one, I can't
item
see
on
it
the
as well.
vendor, I
There's
can't
also
afford
quite a
it
few
though, is
alchemies
the
and stuff as
problem.
well.
Yeah, alchemies are kind of not really intended to be that common anymore because the intended way to go through to rare is more via regaling.
Look, I
so,
just
like,
ran out of
alchemies are, like,
By the way,
relative-
I just want to point
alchemies are the
out,
kind of like,
I'm in the
awesome
end
alchemy,
game.
That's like a kind of that's the uncommon
I just ran
thing
out of
that you do
regals, by
occasionally,
the
not
way.
like kind of common workaday crafting that you're doing all the time. So like yeah, it should be that
Regals
the
just
regals
do
are
not
the
drop in this
primary
game.
source of crafted rares.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Well, the good benefit here is we have so many players right now that we can just get some data and get some analytics very, very quickly about what this actually is.
Yeah.
And you might find that it's just very sensitive to, you know, there's always just going to be a portion of unlucky players and a portion of lucky players. Like, I
Yeah.
definitely know that there's a lot of swinginess, of course, and that can happen. And again, that it might just be that. And I know you've probably played more than most, so arguably you should have the you should have the the most amount of data.
I'm in the
from
end
a purely
game and
anecdotal
don't
perspective.
have
So,
regals.
I'm
gonna have to buy them with
probably
exalts.
have the best average going on.
Because I'm using them.
Most accurate average, I should
For
say. But
maps.
that being said, like we
And
have the
can't
capacity
sustain.
to look into this very quickly, and we can
Yeah.
do so probably even today and figure out what's going on and whether or not it meets our expectations. So.
So, the next thing I want to ask about is the ailment thresholds. You have like how easy it is for the player to be stunned, player to be frozen and stuff. And I'd say that feels a little bit overly punishing when we don't have as many solutions or tools, right? Because we have one charm slot, and it is quite difficult to get a second or third. And that's competing for freeze immune, stun immune, poison immune, ignite immune, and chaos immune. Sorry, chaos resist, and bleed. Now, I would say poison, ignite, and bleed from the monsters don't actually do that much right now. But if it did, like, this would be a very, very heavily competed for, like, singular solution to,
So for this, they can actually solve this, or they put new support gems in that lower this, but they cost spirit. So if they gave us all 30 more spirit, like 30 increased spirit, and you could potentially use that, and you can either get stun recovery or the freeze duration in that, then that would solve this problem. Because you could choose 2 to be immune to in that, but they didn't give us more spirit with that, so that's competing with the other spirit things.
to doing anything with that. So, and as an addendum to the question, I wonder, would you consider letting
curious
players
what
get
they're gonna
more
say to
implicit
this,
charm
though.
slots based on item level? So like maybe at like 50 plus, they have 2, and at 81, they get 3.
I mean, we probably will increase the number of charm slots. Like that's something that we like kind of were intending to do and never got to yet. But I don't think that the ailment threshold was in the right place before. Like effectively, ailments didn't exist before we changed that. So like we need like.
I don't agree at all. That's what I died to all the time.
To happen. Like, you know, during the campaign before you got frozen like 3 times the whole campaign, it kind of was a bit.
Do know we didn't actually universally.
And the
double
monsters
the
are so
stun-
fast.
the
If you get
stun
freeze or stun,
It was only-
one,
it
you
was
go in a
ailments that
combo,
did
you get
stun it.
they stun
freaking
you more
freeze,
as
you get
things
stun
higher
locked, you're
level.
dead.
The expected amount
Because
of stun
defenses
threshold
suck in this game.
you should have goes up. So it's not, but it's pretty minimal throughout the entire campaign.
You get frozen, you're
But what
dead.
we've also increased is the you gain a bunch of stun threshold when you get light stun, so you have way lower probability of getting stun locked.
In every single
But
instance
then
that
I
I've
would also
died, I've
point
got
out, like,
completely
some of those
stun locked.
charms just suck because
I
it
got-
doesn't
I
even
just get
mitigate the
stun locked
that
and
stunned
die.
you. And that
I
is
know
just
that they
something
did
we,
that,
like,
but it
we
didn't help
initially
me
did,
at
and,
all
we need
not
change
die
this,
to getting
and then
stun
they
locked.
just got lost in the weeds. So like, the other thing is changing those. And I know the resistance ones work this way as well. Like those just need to also cancel out the thing that caused it, or mitigate the thing that caused it. And those where some do and some don't. So that needs to change 100%. And then yes, we need more slots. I think we're actually going to support up to 6 slots. That isn't to say that everyone will trivially have 6, but there is UI for it.
6 is only.
Yeah.
6 is a thing you might be able to do with uniques and stuff like that. It's not something that you get.
But it was certainly our expectation, or intention, I should say, that we give out more slots so that people are running more. Like 1 is not what you should be running. Like 2 certainly at high end minimum, and like probably 3 and like sometimes 4 wouldn't be unreasonable.
Okay.
But it's interesting that even the ailment threshold change we made has not really affected most of the ailments that you just said. Like you just were saying that, like, you know, that bleed, poison and stuff are not really doing much yet. And it's like,
yeah,
like that wasn't even, like, even halving that number apparently wasn't enough to make those be a thing that you need to care about. Like only frozen is the one that really kind of changed.
Yeah, stun and frozen are the
stun
2
thing is
ones
separate,
that
it's not
really,
part of
really
the
matter.
ailment.
Yeah, I mean, but if
so
they did do a
but-
lot of damage, that'd be very overwhelming right now, and things we can deal with.
Well, but I mean, yeah, like it's not like we want it to be overwhelming.
It's a
but
bit of a
we want it
different.
to
It's a bit of a different.
Oh, I completed this
Right,
map
but
and
we
keep
get
playing.
mod modifiers
Oopsie.
and map mods and everything
Right.
involved.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
You need a
but,
wife?
it needs to. It does need to happen sometimes in order for it to actually be something that's worth mitigating. So now we just need to.
Why
look
do you
at
need
the
a wife?
actual-
So she
get
takes
the
up all
charm
your
stuff as well.
time so you don't have to deal with these guys talking?
And do you think the implicit will be tied to item level at all? So it'll be something that you don't necessarily have to do a crazy investment or a path on the tree?
I don't know what the answer to that is. I have
Okay.
to think about how we want to introduce that. Like that is a one way. and there's my
You're like,
thoughts.
I'd rather
I
have a
just to
wife
look
and
at that.
deal with that than listen to
The other
them.
thing is like charm. There's a
Oh, geez.
level of like reviewing charms in general is just how, you know, aside from how many.
By the way, they're saying, oh, well, what changed in the campaign? They gave us less life and less life scaling, by the way, on like all the pieces of gear. We're running around with like 2100. I'm 2100 life in these maps. You can barely get more. They killed all life scaling. That's another thing. And that is directly corresponding with the ailment thing too.
You have, and not just their implicit, like their base value. There's also just like, I'd say a lot of the modifiers on them are just absolutely like nonsense. It's like, oh, recover 4 mana when it procs. It's like, okay, thanks. That's not a useful thing to happen. So there's a bunch of affixes there we just need to make better as well, and we may as well probably do that at the same time, unless of course it makes it take longer, in which we'd rather just get out the number of charms first. So yep.
Yeah.
Dare we do
In
increase the
POE1,
movement
we
speed and
have
attack speed of monsters?
I'm
Whatever,
a
we're
huge
doing
fan
it.
of those, especially for temporary
We're doing it.
solutions.
Ooh, Untainted
Is
Paradise.
that something you're open to bringing back in POE2?
I'm not a huge fan of them because they ended up devaluing the notables a lot. Like the notables became really bland when masteries were introduced, and it's like, and it also means that like the where you are on the tree didn't matter as much either, which like kind of wasn't amazing.
We'll save
So I
that for
think that
tier
we,
15
like,
map.
prefer to have it be a situation where the notables are more interesting, and I do think that in
So I already
POE2,
did one of
the
those.
notables are very interesting. Like it's something that like I think that is notably good. So
More work
like,
to do there.
yeah,
though,
but
for
there is
sure.
more work to do. But I don't love the way that the masteries kind of like blandified the notables, and so yeah, I think we can. That's probably. I think I prefer it. Just putting the power in the notables rather than the masteries.
But I don't feel like they're directly competing at each other, right? You can still have like really interesting masteries and notables. Like those notables.
Yeah,
can
I
still be
want
super
masteries.
interesting.
I think masteries are really good.
I mean, there's only so many stats that can exist, but I mean, look, fundamentally everything competes with every other thing because of the way that, like, you know, due to mod dilution. So like you have to, you know, you have to budget that in some level. Otherwise, you just get a situation where you've got so many effects on your character that like everything, that like nothing, no one thing matters at all. So like that's, you know, just.
I'm a bit more torn about this
I
one
hate
personally,
these
because I do
icons
agree there are downsides.
For
but on the other hand,
Expedition, they made them so
the one
much
that added
worse.
it to POE1,
I don't
so,
know why
like,
they
I-
did that.
a little
They
bit
could have
like-
just
Well, I don't
kept
think
what
it
they
was.
had.
I don't think it was obvious at the time.
Yeah.
What
Some
downside
things
that
they're
would happen,
changing.
but certainly not
It's
something
like,
that I would
don't,
be
if it
against.
ain't
also just,
broke,
like,
don't
the
fix it.
pageantry
They're
is,
like,
overwhelmingly
we're starting from
complicated to deal with.
scratch.
And so having this
Break
extra
everything,
layer on
make
it
the
was
same
probably my
mistakes
biggest thing of,
that we
like,
already
oh
solved.
no, we made the thing that scares people the most more scary. Because there's this extra layer that they have to, an extra keyword they have to know about, and that was my main thing of like, maybe we should just simplify the thing that is like the scariest thing. Like that was a big argument to me, but there are, there's intermediary grounds there as well, but yeah, there's like downsides to it for sure. Like I agree. There's also maybe a way to make them work. I don't know.
But I mean, what's the goal of it, right? Like, if the goal is to give you temporary solutions, then we don't necessarily have to solve it there. We could just solve it in a different place. I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily something
That is also true.
That's going to give you the downsides that we see that those ones having.
It's also just as a
yes.
player, it is just very fun. Like I absolutely enjoy it. And it definitely, I can tell you, it does not make me feel like notables are devalued. I was even more exciting because you get it when you get the notable.
It's hard to identify that in the moment because like you don't notice the lack of something you don't notice the lack of something of what something could have been in the same way that you notice like the thing that's in front of you that you're enjoying. You know what I mean? Like it's harder to appreciate the fact that the notables are less cool in POE1.
Right.
Like, because you're not thinking about that. You're thinking, I want the
I mean, you can at least rest assured that we're going to think about why they were important and what we could do to solve them, whether it be that means or another. Like,
Yeah.
the good thing about these is all of the things almost everything you bring up is going to result in some sort of multi-hour discussion between us over the next week. So,
Okay, this is a problem though, because these are all things you should have thought of because you solved them in POE1. You didn't go through POE1 and say, why do we have masteries? Why do we have this? Why do we have resist the same way? You didn't do that already? Are you serious? You were promising release of the game this year, actually in a couple months. Okay? And you haven't had these thoughts? Are you serious?
That's good.
Well,
Well,
which is the huge benefit of these things for sure.
yeah. Yeah, and again, thank you for doing it. But the next,
I mean,
one's
it's
something I
great
care a
he's
lot
doing
about,
this, but
especially
you
as a
should have
hardcore
had
player.
this internally. If
Defense
you don't
is
have
seen
that
very
internally,
undertuned compared to
that is
offense.
worrying,
And just, like,
dude.
anecdotally, if the two options, right? If we look at it in
Yeah,
big
but they
hyperbole,
need that
where,
internally.
I get to
Yeah,
watch,
we
like,
need to ask them
tankiness
questions
be
that they
out of
didn't
hand
think of.
or offense
But
be
they
out of
should
hand.
have. These
So,
are
literally
like
somebody walking up to,
no-brainer
like,
things.
one-shot
If they
me,
don't have them, they need to hire some
looking at
different
somebody
people.
standing there be immortal, right? I always think like if one
Or
should
they're
be out
too
of hand, it's
blinded
more
by their
interesting when the defensive one is out
vision
of hand.
or
You still get some
something.
possibilities and stuff like that. It seems so much easier always, and I think most patches have been like this, where it's always easier to scale offense rather than defense. And
You know what
I
I'm
wonder a little
beginning
bit
to
how you
think?
feel
I'm beginning to think that Chris Wilson carried them really hard in vision and design. That's what I'm beginning to think from this interview.
about that.
And he just did this stuff and he handled it, so they never learned
You're
these
not
skills
wrong, that often
and
the
they
best
never
defense
learned how to
is
think like this.
Stacking
That
all
is
of
what
the
I'm
damage.
thinking happened.
Yeah.
And it would make a lot of sense.
I mean, we've suffered from this
Because
for
there's
a
no
long
excuse
while. It
to
is
not,
ultimately a consequence of
for
just
like a
having
couple
the
of the
game
things
be,
that they
like,
said
again,
here,
talking about the hip
this
firing
late
and
into
things
the
being a bit
development,
unregulated
there's
with
no
respect to
excuse for
the
that.
levels of uniques and builds and stuff going everywhere and hard to think of it all and like.
So
but it is
Chris
generally
definitely
true
just
that
carried
we
them,
have
definitely.
More offensive,
More so
I guess
than,
people
he
find
let on.
damage in general to be more fun as an investment avenue.
That
for
is
sure.
the real thing, is that most people would prefer to invest in offense generally.
But
I
but
agree
yeah,
with
he
that. But then,
yeah,
shouldn't
he definitely
defense
must
be
have thought of
even
these
more
things
encouraged then for the people that want to? Because even as a
for
hardcore
them.
player, I almost feel like it's the opposite. Like anecdotally, for example, for point one, and full disclosure, I have not been able to get to Arbiter yet, right? We're very early in the league, so I don't know if you made them do less damage. But in point one, other people were doing some testing, and I asked software players to try a little bit. And there were people that were getting one-shot by Arbiter moves with 15k life. Some that are like kind of hard. So as a hardcore player, what I felt like then, I was like, well, since I can't really tank, like there are multiple moves here that I can't tank, not just like one big telegraph one-shot. There are multiple here that I can't tank. So what I did to overprepare instead was I went in with so much damage that I just one-shot the boss. Which is a little bit deflating for me. I would say Arbiter was one of the least fun bosses. Whereas I would way rather go in and be so tanky that I can make a few mistakes. And then end up leaving.
It's quite hard to split the difference between being tanky and being immortal.
No!
Like, surprisingly hard to get that right. And when I say that, it's because you can regenerate life very quickly. And so if you don't die, like, okay, and the other thing as well is that boss abilities that do those big hits take a long time, right? And like the bosses often can't hit you again immediately afterwards. It's like they'll do their big ability, and it's not like it's going to just immediately follow up with something that's going to chip you down either. So
yeah,
like,
but
if
we
you
can't
fail,
tank them.
no, but what I'm getting towards is that if you don't have something that's going to do a lot of damage at the for those big hits, like we just have to be very careful, because like if like let's say that one of those big hits did only like, you know, a third of your life, or something like that. I don't think that then the boss would ever be able to kill you ever, because it would have to effectively be able to do 3 of those, like of those things before you can regenerate them. So what you're really asking for, and this is something we discussed a lot in the past, by the way, what you're asking for is for a more attrition-based gameplay style, like a more MMO style like thing.
So yeah.
And what you're really saying then is that you want flasks to do way less regeneration, and you want regeneration to be controlled way more in general, and have a more attrition-based gameplay style. And that kind of just isn't a PoE way of doing things. Now, like, I mean, that could be a thing.
Yay, tier 10s, we're making progress.
But it would be like, it would be the balance change of the universe to do something like that. Like, it would be a complete redesign of all the damage and like
portals are
bosses, like, the whole
disabled
way
in
everything
boss
works.
fight,
Like,
but I finished the
but
map.
change to more attrition style would just be like you know, an apocalyptic level of balance change compared to what we have for sure.
All right,
I'm
see ya,
not
Tell. Thanks for
100% sure I
stopping
agree with
by.
that, and I was going to ask, do you think the goal of a difficult boss should be to kill the player or to deny the player the loot?
I don't understand what that means.
So, when you're leaning more towards attrition-based gameplay, right, you're recognizing as a player that you've entered a fight that you're maybe not fully ready for, you're maybe getting the boss to 30%, you're not able to finish it, and you're like, I have to leave. I have to leave this fight, I'm not strong enough. As opposed to punching the player with death, you're already just taking away the loot anyway. There's not an XP loss anyway at the moment.
I mean, I guess we're not thinking in those terms at all. Like, we're just like, but okay, sure, you're talking, okay, like, so that question, I would say, only makes sense in an attrition-based gameplay context, which is not what we have. So like, it kind of means that like the boss doing abilities to be able to the boss trying to win is and trying to kill you versus denying you the loot isn't a different circumstance unless there's attrition, which we don't have. So like, you know, so what I'm saying is, so what are you not agreeing with then about?
Well, I think you do have attrition-based combat on a lot of bosses, right? Because there are many of the like campaign bosses that don't necessarily have one-shots. But even just on like as a Viper, as an example, right? I was having a quite long fight because I wasn't particularly powerful at Viper. So I think I had to reset 7 times without it killing me, but 7 times before I was able to actually kill Viper on my build because I was running out of flasks. And you don't have a good way to regen them during the fight.
So I'm not when I'm talking about attrition gameplay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about attrition in the sense that your life pool is something that goes down over long periods of time rather than something that moves around.
Well, it effectively is through the flask, right?
Well, yes.
I was no longer able to recover.
So yes, to the extent that we have attrition-based gameplay, the attrition is through the flask. You are correct. Like, attrition via flask is what we have. What I'm saying though there. Well, okay, sure, fair enough. Like, yeah, the flasks do give you the attrition, and so therefore
The campaign is quite attrition.
It's just that
the kind of cap comes off, so to speak, at the end game, where like it can be very it's certainly the case with a concept like Leech that the moment that a boss can't one-shot you at all, which
Well, okay, like if you removed all sources of flask charge gain out, like that you could do in a boss fight, then you could probably reduce the size of the big monster hits.
well, just to check real quick as well, just because specifically talking about Arbiter, there's kind of a few things going on. Like, it is the intention that the skills, and which it happens in the game and POE1 as well, and like, some people might argue it's some sort of bad design.
Sorry, guys, I'm not really saying a lot because they kind of are
like
stun locking me here. with some of these
there are
things
other skills that are
they're saying.
more like your
I just
your
don't even know what to
personal
say.
agility
I'm
or dexterity
speechless.
based, and you have to avoid them.
My
and
brain
that's
is
like,
fried.
you know,
I worked
stand in
hard
the-
on
the elder
complicated
donuts
problems all
and the,
day.
you know, the dances.
My brain
and
is
the, like,
fried.
moving to the lanes and the. You
And
know,
they've
bullet
left me
hell-esque
speechless,
things, where it's
frankly.
like, that's not really your character as much. Like, are you thinking those are fine, or are those, whether or not they're exactly tuned in this context, like in terms of timing? But are you okay with the idea that those kill you and you don't get to make, like, whether or not they could be more lenient is a different question, but like, are you okay with those killing you and kind of your defenses don't really matter? Like, are those the problem? Is what I'm just trying to understand exactly what skills are a problem.
Yeah, so for the Arbiter, I feel like there are multiple, right? You have the corridor move. That was pretty much always a one-shot, right? And sometimes, obviously, like you were saying, that wasn't like the main topic, but being spawned almost too far away. I remember seeing a clip of like Quinn running slightly in the wrong direction, and then he sees the corridors the other way, and he's like, "Oh, it's over for me." You have the Arbiter move where he does like the fake out meteor, where he starts like firing the beam into it and stuff. I guess the way, like, as a player, I would want defense to be is the more I invest into defense, the larger my room for error should be. Which is where I'm feeling there's a big disjoint now, right?
Yeah, that's what I think too. And you suffer damage for it, so this should be a viable playstyle. I should be able to make myself ridiculously tanky
they're still not one-shotting
because
me.
I'm going to sacrifice damage.
So all I need to be able to do is tank them, and then, yeah, I just don't have an option for huge one-shots at all.
Okay, so yeah, I understand the point of view from that one. The main thing is just we're going to have to be really careful with the balance to make sure that it isn't now just like, you know, 20% of investment of the way there. Now you don't get one shot by them, so you just hold down, you know, whatever button on the boss or whatever, and now you're leeching permanently and you're fine. That's the concern. So like,
what's wrong with
if it is
that?
a, like,
What's wrong with
universal...
that? You could still mess that up.
Okay, like for example, would it be okay?
People are bad
I
at
mean,
games,
corridor,
so I don't
let's
see a
use that as the
problem with
example.
that.
So the corridor obviously has some like, okay, it's too hard to get. We need to probably improve the way the lanes spawn such that you don't get into that situation where like it's literally impossible for me to run there unless I have X or Y. There is the thing where like, okay, for example, if like life regen wasn't regulated, like, do you really think any player in the game, like this is, I'm not saying this is wrong or right, should just be able to AFK in that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so definitely I prefer that over watching people one-shot bosses. 100%. With enough investment.
Well, look, no, we won't disagree, but just like, I'm just curious, do you actually think it should be okay or able to?
Yeah, I'm not entirely against something just being a straight up one-shot. Like failing the memory game, for example, in POE1. Like, I'm not inherently against that. But I do think the current ones are a little bit, like, too fast to be those one-shots.
Yeah, I agree. I just think there is two problems here, which I'm interested in. One is mechanics feeling fair, which there are things here that are unfair, and that is bad, and they need changing. And I will get that adjusted today. And I'll get that on live as soon as I can, which might even also be today. The other thing would be that the bigger thing, which is that investing in defense is not allowing you to mitigate it. It's like, so different from the corridor skill. There's just like whether or not investing in defense enough, it gives you enough defense against things in general, against the bosses, which maybe isn't the case. It might be that it might be that yes, you investing in defense needs to be more advantageous right now for sure. And like,
Yeah, that's the
don't get me
problem.
wrong, there's
And
nothing
the
more. I've
life
spoken about this
squish
before in the past. There's nothing more
made it worse.
demoralizing than putting hundreds of hours into a boss and then it's just like deleted, and it's like, well, great, that was.
But it's also demoralizing to just watch someone sit there and face tank it and just attack it with no like not even having to move. Like that's also
especially without the gear.
Like it's kind of it's almost a bit ridiculous to discuss like which of these two horrible outcomes is better. Like like surely the actual answer is like neither of them should be happening.
No, I agree. It's just that it's pretty rare that we've seen defense be the really OP one. That's all, right? Like we very often see.
Yeah,
offense.
maybe it is, but like I think that's probably also a lot around the fact that people like building glass cannons. Like that is a thing people just like doing, and so
I like building tanky characters.
And so then there's the issue.
I feel like I'm forced into glass cannons.
Let me put it this way: even if right now, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, like it probably isn't, but even if defense was overtuned compared to damage, I think that you're still not going to incentivize people to do that until you get to the point where they're immortal. Like, I don't think getting 80% of the way to immortality is actually enough even for people to still not want to build glass cannons. And so you've kind of got like that issue of like, it's just really, really hard to get that balance right. So
I don't agree
like,
with that.
that isn't to say that we won't try, but I'm just saying that like, it is... People,
it's about knowing your limits as a player and then building more
reason,
defenses because you're not a pro player, and then going into offense afterward. That's how software works. So it's like, okay, I know I'm not good at bossing, so I'm going to build more defense. It's not be about immortal. It's about getting as little defense as possible, but enough that I could succeed with my skill level.
Having the boss be heavy stunned and or frozen or whatever, like majority of the fight is just even more of a reason to just go ballistic on damage. Yeah, there are problems here, 100%. I'm just thinking of random other things that.
Well, yeah, I have other questions about defense as well. So armor break, I would say like effectively disables armor, right, as a defense for hardcore. It's sort of like when it comes around, it kind of like shuts down your main form of defense. You're feeling like very tanky if you do invest in your armor. Well, ideally, I do still armor needs a buff. But I guess the problem I have with Armor Break and Fizz Overwhelm in POE1 is that it's just so crazy to me to have something effectively shut down your defense from time to time. So yeah, are you happy with Armor Break and Fizz Overwhelm being in the game?
Well, in POE2 context, I am not happy with the current state of Monster Armor Break. No, that is also on my change today list. So.
He's gonna have a busy day. He's got a lot of things to change today.
Amounts of armor, and that isn't. So if the more you stack, the less significant the armor break becomes from the enemy. I suspect there might be some sources of percentage based in there, which are just like it disincentivizes. I mean, it just means that the more you have, the more you're relying on armor, the more punish it's going to be. So yeah. I just need to do a quick audit. There's not that many sources, thankfully, so it won't take long, and I just need to make sure that it's working. And then there are possibly cases where it is just doing too much. And
I think they are trying to do too much. Why is he should be a vision guy? Why is he the one that's going through and tuning these numbers? How do they have this company set up? What in the world? He's gonna go personally do that? These are like the CEOs of the company. That's not how it's just supposed to work. He doesn't have a person who could do that. It isn't him.
Yeah, it's just like. Yeah, it acts as an insane weakness, but yeah, I know 100% agreed it is not on the.
How do they have like a crap load of revenue and they don't have that infrastructure?
To make sure that
this is wild to me.
Get the community team to go back through this afterwards and make sure.
Even with a 10-person company, the CEO should be in charge of their game directors.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
They should be in charge of the vision. They should have someone else who goes and actually looks through this, and then maybe they verify or they read the summary. If he's going through and verifying the numbers, what are they doing?
No, I know, but like that's what I mean for armor too.
I see what you're saying. Sorry.
It's just very apparent to me they have no idea how to run a company. Maybe I'm biased because, like, this is what I do is advise companies all the time. That's what I get paid for. But like, what are they doing? If I had a 10-person business, I wouldn't have this structure set up. Don't they have over 100 employees? How is this your business structure?
Understood. Yeah, sure. I can't
In order to change,
be able to immediately say that.
In order to change armor, we'd need to be able to understand why it's bad. And I don't think just changing the number right now is right.
All I know is, like, this is giving me more and more confidence that, like, what am I doing with my life? I just need to own a company. Because, like, apparently you can make a multi-million-dollar revenue company and get super rich and not have a freaking clue how to run a company. What am I doing? I need to stop, like, just doing consulting work and just build out a company. I can't actually believe this. But he's going to go look at the numbers on his own. Are you serious right now? He can't delegate that and then verify at the end. Be like, hey, here are the numbers, and we found these two off. Are we okay to change these? No one can summarize it. He's going to go look through the numbers himself.
For that.
Hopefully that's what he means, that he's getting a report from someone else and not going through the code and doing it. Because they're pretty helpless if that's the case.
There was some overwhelm on some bosses, and we removed it, and there was... there were too many skills converting too much into element, and I think we pushed back a lot of that, so like it obviously makes the armor more effective against those abilities, and like there's a lot more of that we probably need to reevaluate as well, just across the board.
Yeah.
But that stuff's really fast to change. As for just a global number shift...
But that's an example right there of why just changing the number wouldn't have even helped, right? Like, if the problem is elemental damage, then making armor stronger wouldn't have done anything for that. So, like, it's so important to understand the reason before we just make changes.
Obviously, the danger there by moving more fizz is it then makes it worse for non-armor builds as well, but that increases the power of armor differential to the others, and so there's, you've got to be careful with that, but look, maybe.
Because
maybe there's something we can do more imminently.
Anecdotally, I would definitely love more access to
what's that?
different forms of defense, and I know that is definitely
And
an
I
EA
can't
problem
ID
where
it,
just
so I
not
don't got any
everything's in yet.
scrolls.
But just to like anecdotally run you through my experience, I am a Smith of Kitava, so I have like the shared res
Fallen Monster
and the
revives.
shared max res.
This
so
thing's
like
gonna probably kill me,
89,
right?
90, 90. And for a long time I was like 85, 86, 87, so very high alley res. And on top of that,
Well, he's dropping a lot of
Yes,
waystones. That's
currently.
about it.
Moving more into fizz is probably going to be to your detriment.
Yeah, sure. But even with that, and a Cloak of Flames, and I can't remember
That's
the
all he did
name
was drop
of something, but
waystones?
there's the unique helmet with like 15% fizz reduction. Even with all of that mitigation, I was like, at the start of today's stream, I was very rough until I got my 4th lab. Like I was able to like improve it a little bit, but it felt a little bit weird to me as a player that I've like my entire ascendancy was defense based. I picked up every defense I could on the tree, and I was trying so hard to get really good gear too, and it was very rough on defense.
I mean, what I immediately probably will do after is I'm just going to grab your character, put it locally, and then just kind of have a look at that, just so I can get a better exact understanding. But like, sure.
I can give you a snapshot before I because now with regen it has been.
We have it all. Don't worry.
Perfect.
We can take anyone's character from live and just play with it. It's not a.
Perfect. Yeah. The regen.
Uh-oh, that scares me. Oh no, they're gonna copy my character. Nerf it. They're gonna copy my character. Maybe I need to stop making videos. I'm getting worried here. Uh-oh, I wish they didn't just say that.
A lot of issues there.
Am I getting this nerf, the only good skill in the game?
Must be brought up a lot, and I thought was a really good point was we see chaos damage very early in POE2. In POE1, it was like generally something we'd see a lot later. Would you be open to considering something like the Chaos Soul Core being a rune instead, something that we can like get early? It's definitely a big part of what makes Viper so scary. Is it's almost impossible to get Chaos Res early on. Yeah.
Sounds like a sort of more of a hardcore related concern, because in standard you wouldn't like it's just balanced to be okay. But in hardcore where you're wanting to definitely not die, it's like a different concern. I don't think we would have thought of
I don't know. I
way.
struggle on that boss.
It is sort of
So
a medium core concern because like if you can't get past the boss, you are just stuck there.
Oh sure, but like I mean the damage, like it's balanced assuming 0 chaos resist, right? So like
Well, Viper's hard.
it is hard. It is a hard fight.
think it's
That's
the
just a
hardest
side
boss,
note
yeah.
that's separate. But
Yeah.
like in terms of just the fact that it's chaos damage, I don't think is as relevant in standard play because like we're balanced assuming you have no chaos
Well,
resistance, and so
What does she
therefore-
do that's chaos? Obviously, the big purple meteor storm that I want to make some changes to, because it just creates too much mess on the ground. It's a little bit lacking
Right.
clarity or that fairness
Well,
problem.
I
And
mean,
then
the
how many
spare
of her
things,
skills?
right? I'm assuming.
So the way it works is, aside from poison itself dealing chaos damage, the only other things that are chaos damage are anything that is purple.
Yeah.
So
So
all of her
just-
green stabs and slashes, none of that is chaos, and none of it
So
should
it's
be
physical.
chaos.
It's
I should
physical
say.
hits, and then the poison. If it poisons you, then it is
Yep.
chaos damage. But because the poison damage is based on the hit, your armor effectively mitigates the chaos damage because it reduced the hit size.
Right.
So yeah.
So, yeah, the meteor thing is a problem, but it's like more of a fairness problem because ideally you should be able to dodge that pretty reliably every time. Right now, it's a bit of a mess.
It is hard to
Um,
dodge that.
Yes, but aside from that, it would only be the poison, of which, yes, your other defenses would, I mean, armor in particular and evasion would mitigate.
Right.
But yes, I do. It is the case, by the way, that if a thing like any snake spitter that's spitting at you with some green
Tier
poison
10s.
thing, that aside from the poison debuff, which I believe you said kind of wasn't that dangerous earlier in general, and maybe there are certain cases where it is.
It's definitely dangerous
Um,
if you're playing an evasion card. Like that poison
but
feels
that-
lethal, and that's once again because the armor didn't.
The hit is
Yeah, yeah.
never chaos damage,
Yeah.
just to be
Okay.
clear. Which
I,
in POE1 it is. It's like half chaos, half fizz.
yeah. No, I did not know that. I fully thought the spares from the side, which a lot of people say is the most dangerous attack, I thought that was chaos. So it's a very heavy
Just
hit.
fizz.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's probably just more of a Viper is too hard problem.
Right. Makes sense. I wanted to ask you a little
She
bit
is
about.
hard.
She's very hard. I wanted to ask you a little bit about pushing. As a player, I experience that sometimes, like as like it's almost seems like desync to me, if I'm being frank. Is there an option to have more source of push resistance? Something, for example, like the more strength the character has, or wearing heavy armor. It does seem a little silly to a lot of people that like people maybe have 300, 500 strength, or they're wearing like full plate, but like yeah, a lot of monsters are just pushing you around very easily.
It doesn't currently exist as a concept of mitigating it, because it was meant to be more of a physical thing of... Well, there's two things. There's like monsters pushing you because you literally cannot occupy the same space as them.
So here are we talking right now about monster charge abilities, or are we talking about like a
Just like
sword,
when they-
like a
yeah.
sword swing?
The number
like
one thing that has
walking
been
into
noticeable
you.
for me is that like little, I think it's called an antline maybe or something. It's like the little like yellow beast that like rolls on you. That still does take you for a ride.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Well, in that
Yeah,
case,
that one's
it's probably
ridiculous.
just a matter of fixing that particular thing. Like, I suspect that the answer.
There's
to
a
this
lot
one
of
is
things
not
that make
we need
glitch out this
mitigation,
jump.
really. It's more just like we just need to
This
look at
jump
places
gets
that, like,
glitched
just
out.
monsters that are bad and just fix them individually.
There are certain things I wanted to do, like... I wanted it to be, and there were technical limitations here that we probably need to reevaluate, but I wanted it to be when you were blocking or parrying and you got hit, you got knocked less back because you technically did deflect them.
right.
In the parry case in particular, and
In
like
some cases, there's just push direction. Like maybe the ant
Yeah,
lions
and
are
then
not
some-
pushing you
well,
side with that thing.
the
And
charges and things taking you a ride has been like honestly the bane of my year.
that's just a
Yeah.
that's more of a just specific setup of specific monsters
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Like, did we fix what's his name? The lumberjack guy.
In theory, but it seems to
It
regress.
still happens
every-
sometimes.
It
There's
seems to
something-
just break every.
I don't think this is a like balance question. I think it's just a technical like we just need to fix this place.
Yeah. I just wonder.
There is also some desync we need to fix. 'Cause
Yeah,
which
sure.
is
There's also that.
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is pushing something you would consider temporarily removing until you have faced the issue?
Not at all. No, no. It will make the game feel like dog shit if we do that. Like there's just lots of things that you need to have. You need to have some pushing in order to make it work. Like
Okay.
I think it's more just specific.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not 100% sure I agree with that, but we'll move on.
That's because you haven't seen it without it. Like it's yeah.
That's fair. That's true.
If
Like,
we
there's a
turn
lot
off
of
all
things-
sources of pushing, it would just be it would be a disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So during early access, we've talked about like respecs and lowering respec costs and stuff, and I wanted to bring up the point that a lot of players are using a large amount of their gold on gambling, because a lot of people are falling behind or feeling behind on gear. So I wonder if you would consider further lowering costs and even like reopen the conversation on ascendancy respec during early access, especially since you've been talking about that you are going to be buffing things. So let's say somebody is like, oh wow, Flame Blast looks really cool. I would love to be able to try that, but maybe redoing the entire campaign again, which could be over 20 hours for a lot of people, feels very prohibitive.
I do find it to be, maybe not. I do find it to be very fucking cheap right now. Is the thing.
Exactly.
What? I don't agree.
I can't say personally I've run into that as a problem. Like, I'll respec my character all the time. Don't think twice about it. But it's not been a concern, really.
I guess it depends how much you gamble or not.
It probably
Well,
does.
at that point, yeah, but even like, I'm saying even if you're just like early, so I don't think it takes that long to actually do a pretty substantial
I have to admit that I haven't been gambling in my playthroughs, really. Like, I was, like, probably about 6 months ago I was doing that all the time, and I just haven't really been doing it recently.
When we did the like gold model and respec costs, we had assumptions of like, here's how much people will spend on vendors, and here's how much, and there's probably look, those assumptions assume a perfect world of that person exactly doing that thing, and so yes, if anyone was to stray from that assumption, then now I'm not going to be able to afford one thing over the other.
What I'm actually hearing right now, by the way, from this and an earlier conversation we had, is that I need to not be I need to do some disenchantless runs, because apparently I'm not testing something that players are actually doing. Like, my runs are entirely, like, I disenchant every rare on my runs, generally. And so if that's a different behavior, then I need to test that and see what the experience is like. Because like
Yes,
the whole like
please
there's
do.
not a currency thing, there's not, you know, like stuff like that, and like and if you're telling me that you're like selling your rares and buying gambling all the time, and then you're also saying you don't have gold for respecs, it's like, well, this is just like a materially different playstyle that I'm not currently testing myself.
Right.
So like,
Well,
I
at
think
least he's
that's
gonna
what we should
investigate
do to
that.
see, what's going on with that.
And with the last point I made, would you, especially with the fact that there are going to be buffs coming during this, would you be?
I don't think that anything changes between early access and not early access regard, by the way. Like, I think that if the argument is that it should, like, I think the argument is the same regardless of whether it's early access. Like, I don't think the early access is a part of this decision regardless. It's just, what is the price supposed to be? We should get it correctly.
Well, sure, but
I
I'm
think
talking about
otherwise it-
ascendancy respec was what I wanted to.
Yeah, otherwise
sure.
it depends a little bit on the severity of the change. But like it depends how.
Just let people try stuff out. Why are you so married to this? It's so stupid. It takes so much time, dude.
How big those changes are, because I needed to get in there and actually do them first, and then make that decision. Really, like there are certainly options there. It is important to me to make sure that I understand exactly where I sit on the ascendancy class respec thing, because the moment that's turned on, it ain't going back. So that is blocked by me, and I will take whatever is necessary on that one. I understand it.
Well,
it is more.
Can I ask you a
I will
question
have a
about it
solution.
then?
Sure.
Do you feel like do you feel like it is absolutely necessary to have those both be permanent choices? Because you already do have the character class itself be a permanent choice, right?
Oh no, and I'm like, I do understand. Do be clear, I am on the fence about this. Like, I can't say that like I'm like, oh, I can't believe POE1 has ascendancy class respecting. Like, I'm all for that as well. It's just I'm also for the more permanent decision. I'm just like, I need to find the variable that makes me be able to, or the articulation to be able to go one way or the other. And it's very easy to just fold on that. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna turn this off. I've heard enough. James, I'm trying to get... Uh-oh! No! This monster's trying to kill me while I'm reading chat. Okay, let me pause the game. Alright. Trying to get spear moving away from poison. Can I get a spear with elemental damage, or I need a fizz spear? Yeah, elemental damage is fine. It doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter at all. As long as the thing with the fizz is if you get 2 fizz modifiers on it or the hybrid one, it scales better. Outside of that, it kind of doesn't matter. As long as you have like if you had 3 elemental rolls, it would be fine. But people think fizz is better unless you're having like fizz nodes, which it gets converted already on most of your skills. The other reason why fizz is better is because of leech, because you can only fizz leech, but it's so unbelievably insignificant that it probably doesn't matter at all for a very long time. Until super late game when you're doing obscene buku damage, doesn't matter. Like leech is barely gonna help you. Like I have leech and a full physical weapon, and you probably can't tell I have leech. I'm still running out of mana and stuff. Because most of it gets mostly converted to Ellie. And in fact, a lot of the scaling is Ellie, so Ellie might actually be better. It's just the synergy between the fizz mods. In POE1, it mattered more because it would double dip before and after conversion, and now it doesn't. It only takes the very end one. So in this game, it doesn't matter nearly as much as POE1. So you just kind of care about overall DPS of the weapon, basically. Yeah, basically, yeah. Or buy a couple for 4x that have open prefixes and slam them. And you'll probably get a better result. And for this one, because we're using this gloves, the elemental damage type doesn't even matter in the slightest, too, by the way. Because it just redistributes them, so it doesn't matter. Even though people usually prefer like lightning and stacking lightning, in this setup, it doesn't matter at all. Except for like the initial pen of the hit that you want pen for. It doesn't matter because eventually you get the thing when they're frozen that you'll penetrate all resists. So as soon as you can get to the point where they're frozen, it don't matter. Because you just have all 3 resists at 0. That doesn't matter that much. I wouldn't overpay for them. You do want them balanced if you ever want to go with this a little bit, but actually the way I'm procking it, I don't think it matters that they're 2. I mean, it's only like very, very marginal. I wouldn't overspend on that. I try to get them all the same, even if it's like 7 on each or 6 on each. I wouldn't care that much. It's a couple percentage. It's pretty negligible. There's better things to spend money on, basically. Like boots with good movement speed is more important than a couple percentage on those gloves. The only reason why I got insanely good rolls is because no one else is using these gloves except me. And so I bought them when no one else was using them. But people also don't know because this elemental damage is extra. They added that in the patch that buffed it in the middle of the last season. And a lot of people don't know that they changed these gloves and made them better like that. I think a lot of people are all just throwing them away too, like not even picking them up as a result of all this. Okay, I kind of have a headache and it's been a long day, so I think I'm going to wrap up there. We didn't quite get to red tier maps. We did get to tier 10s and we got quite a bit of Atlas points, so I'm happy with that. So I need, once I get to tier 11, I have, where's the world screen? No, that's not the world screen. I still have a unique map all the way back. By the way, look how far you have to travel. Look at this. Where's the start at? This is the start. Look how far I traveled already. And I still don't got all the points. I had a unique one somewhere around here. This requires a tier 11 for me to do this, I think. I have another one of those somewhere that is linked. Oh no, is that a unique? Don't I have another one? I know I think I have that one somewhere. I'm losing my mind. I swear I had 2 of those and I pathed to one of them. And I couldn't do it. I'm losing my mind. Oh, I did that one already, so I just didn't bother doing both of them? I don't know. Look how far I went. Anyways, I got this for a tier 15 when I get there. We're going into another corrupted area, so that's good. So we're getting there. Ah, here it is. I found it. There's this one right here. This needs to be tier 11 or higher. So when I get to tier 11s, I can get another 2 points there. So this one should be 10s, and then it goes up from there. 10, and then I have 5 more corruptions to find, and then I can actually start juicing. The grind in this game is unreal, by the way. It takes forever. Some of it's the really big layouts. I think that's the issue. But we're getting there. Slowly yet surely. Let's put this over here. Oh, that's pretty garbage. Maybe an Exalt.
What is it?
Okie dokie. I'm gonna go to bed. Alright. See you guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed my commentary on the whole thing. It was very interesting. Man, what a scary interview. Some of these questions mean that their infrastructure is wrong. It makes so much sense to me after listening to this why everything got delayed and screwed up. And it's very scary because they don't realize that that's the problem. But it is what it is. All right, see ya.